All right, here we go, everybody. Welcome to episode number 85 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night. Today is March the 13th, 2021. My name is Jeremy Lee, and we've got a great show for you tonight. But before we get to it, I do want to thank last Saturday's guest, Brian Gray, Leaf CEO. Another spectacular episode with Brian. We went for a couple of hours, and if you did not have a chance to catch that, go back and watch it. It is in the Sports Cards Live archives on YouTube. Check it out. What a great show. Always is with Brian. Thanks again to him. Next I also want to thank Joe Perot. My buddy Joe Perot joined me on After Hours. We had another great show late Saturday night last week, so check that out as well. Next Saturday, my guest will be Tyler Nethercott from Market Movers, the sports card investor tool. He'll be joining me. And on After Hours, later on that night, we've got Rodman Martinez, one of the best Michael Jordan collectors out there. I'm really excited to have Rodman on the show. He'll be live from Honduras. That will be pretty awesome. I want to welcome all new viewers. We just passed 2,400 subscribers on YouTube. I want to thank each and every one of you for that. On our way to 2,500. What a milestone that will be. I want to shout out the Big Three Hockey. Thank them for supporting the channel. Check them out on Instagram. They do showcase the finest singles in the hobby. I also want to shout out the Basketball Card Fanatic magazine. If you are not yet subscribing to that, give it a shot. Reach out to the Real 27 guy on Instagram. And later on in the show, I will put the information on the ticker. I also want to shout out the guys, the ladies and gentlemen who listen to this show on podcast format. Really appreciate you guys. We just passed 20,000 downloads on podcast. That's pretty cool. Each episode is getting 600 to 900 plays. So I want to thank all of you for listening to the show during the week on the podcast. As always, guys, tonight, your comments and your questions will be in play. I also want to mention that there is no after hours at this point scheduled for tonight. So we may or may not do it. We'll see how I'm feeling at the end of the show. If I'm still up for another hour or so of live broadcasting, we will definitely do that and figure out what the format for that will be. Okay, let's go ahead and get to tonight's guest. He is a repeat guest on the show. He was last with us on June the 27th, episode 23. He's back tonight. He started collecting in 1986 when he decided to collect he decided to collect Dwight Gooden instead of Michael Jordan. We'll find out later if he regrets that decision. He left the hobby in 1997 after the Major League Baseball strike. He came back in 2006 when his kids were born so he could buy them birth year sets. His favorite team is the Chicago Bulls. His favorite athlete is Michael Jordan. He's born in St. Louis. He grew up with stops in New Orleans and Chicago, back in St. Louis, Missouri right now. Let's bring him out. Here we go. Paul Lesko, welcome to episode 85 of Sports Cards Live. How are you doing tonight, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back.
It is my pleasure. So as I just mentioned, you were on with me June the 27th, just about 9 months ago. And as we were just talking, doesn't feel like it's been 9 months. I'm looking at you right now. It almost feels like it could have been last week, but boy, those 9 months went by pretty quickly. The hobby has come a long way. We're going to talk about some of that, but really you are an attorney. You follow the legal happenings of the hobby very closely. And that's why we're having you on, because you're going to give us an update. So should we jump right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's jump right in. So, before we do, Paul, let's just say hello to the chat. We got people here already. We got Hockey Guy pregame in this one. I saw you in there earlier. Hockey Guy, great to have you. Same with you, Hockey Cod. Welcome back to the show. My man Justin Bode is out there. Welcome to the show, Justin. We got Rocco Rosado. He says, hi, crew. Let's seat the jury. The judges in the house with Paul and Jeremy. What will be the verdict be? Great show. Love it, Rocco. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Justin, no, you do not get paid for this. This is volunteer only, but it's mandatory. It is mandatory.
It's your civic duty, though.
It's your civic duty. Good evening to you, Yannick. Jeff McMahon, great to have you back. Sports Card 613, hello to you. We got Terry Fortune in the house. Terry is currently, and probably right till the end, is winning the Sports Cards Live Yahoo Fantasy Hockey Draft. Congratulations so far to you, Terry. I've never seen someone work the waiver system quite like he does. Anonymous Facebook user, hola to you, back to you. Frank Ostella, good evening. Happy to have you back. We got Dennis in the house. We got BT Sports Cards. Says, great diversity with your guests. Looking forward to this perspective tonight. Thank you, BT. Thank you so much. Jeremy Pringle in the house. Good evening. YYC. We got my man Daniel. We got Lowell Ahe in the house. Welcome. We got Jake, 90s B-ball cards. Whoa, we got lots of you guys. We got Bill Webatu. Welcome to the show. Lee Haskins is here. Mike Truman, Kurt Renault, Brent Criswell, Eric S., Latrell Spreewell, the American Dream in the house. What's good? What's good with you, Latrell? What's good with you? We got John Falk. Paul is one of my favorite follows on Twitter. Well, that's nice to know. Welcome
Thanks.
to the show, John Falk. Great to have you.
He probably follows 7 people. He only probably follows 7 people.
Yeah. You're one of half a dozen people he follows, Paul. I kid. EMC7 says HGA saved the hobby, in my opinion. Maybe a little bit early to make that claim, EMC7, but I'd love to hear your perspective on that. Interesting comment for sure. Sam in the house. Good evening, Sam. Bobby Baseball. Rich Klein, hobby stalwart in the house, says, since Paul is an attorney, I can guarantee he is far more loquacious than I'll ever be. I love it. We're bringing back the loquaciousness to the show. It's been a while. Welcome to the show, Rich. We got Bobby Burrell, right where I want you, Bobby, on the show. Thank you so much for being here. My man, Joe Perot, who was my guest on last week's After Hours. We got Mike Zier. We got Paul Cashman. We got Frank Cote. We got Colin Murray. Welcome, everybody. All right. It's an accomplishment now, Paul, for me to get to the bottom of the comments so I can kind of rest and not feel like I'm missing anything.
It's a packed house.
Yeah, we got great viewership already. Since you were last on, the viewership has built up and grown. I'm really happy with that. So, all right, man, let's jump in. We've got about 9 or 10 topics, cases, actions, or I guess you could say that we're gonna speak of. So I'll introduce the first one, and you take it away and fill everybody in on what's the story behind the case and where are things at with it. So the first one is the Upper Deck versus Panini. Michael Jordan in the background. We talked about it last time you were on, but there's some updates. So and why don't you set the stage and explain what the case was, what the problem was with this MJ in the background?
Yeah, this was my favorite lawsuit of 2020. It involved, as everybody knows, Upper Deck has the exclusive right to make cards with Michael Jordan on there. Panini, on the other hand, has the NBA exclusive. So because of that, we have not seen Michael Jordan cards with him in a Bulls uniform in a long time. In 2020, Panini filed a lawsuit, or UD filed a lawsuit against Panini because in the background of 2 cards, if you look, you could see Michael Jordan. One of them was a card of Scottie Pippen, and in order to find Michael Jordan, he's really tiny in the corner. I mean, it's whoever found that, power to him for finding him. The other card was a Dennis Rodman, and you can see a little bit more of Michael Jordan in that card, but they're not cards of Michael Jordan. It's just happens to be in the background of a live action shot. So Upper Deck filed a lawsuit against Panini, and it's been going on for it's about to have its birthday, I guess, right now. So the lawsuit really hasn't gotten too far. They're in discovery, they're exchanging documents, and because of that, apparently Panini got a hold of Upper Deck's license with Michael Jordan. They were going to get it anyway. And they say that there's problems with that license. They don't believe that Upper Deck has the right to sue Panini, because really in the lawsuit where Upper Deck is suing Panini for having Michael Jordan in the card, it's not Upper Deck's rights that are being violated. It's Michael Jordan's rights, because only Michael Jordan has the ability to grant people permission to put him in cards. So Upper Deck is kind of stepping in the shoes of Jordan to bring this lawsuit. But Panini says the license does not allow them to do it. The license, all it does is says, hey, Upper Deck, you can use my likeness in cards, but it doesn't have that next step, and if anybody else puts a card out there with me in it, you can sue. They say that's not there. Now, normally, if it comes to issues like that, I'd go through the filings and look at what's there, but Upper Deck has not produced the license publicly. It's been filed under seal in the case. So I've posted some of the arguments online for people to look at, and it's more redacted than UFO documents released from the U.S. government. I mean, there's like page after page is totally blocked out. So, which is kind of funny, because if the license, Upper Deck says we have the license and we can sue. So it sounds like this should be a paragraph that you've already told everybody what this paragraph says. Well, let it go out there, let people see it. So We'll see what happens. The judge gets to see it. The judge will ultimately decide what's going to happen. I suspect that because Upper Deck didn't produce the actual language, because there's kind of this little tap dancing around what does it actually say. I suspect that the language at best is ambiguous, or maybe at worst for Upper Deck, it just gives them what Panini says it gives them, just the right to use Michael Jordan's image and nothing else. So 2 months, 3 months, hopefully we'll get a ruling on there. But that's it's still my favorite case of 2020. It's over a Michael Jordan this small on a card. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Last time you were on, we talked about it, and we actually I shared the screen and showed the card. I didn't have time to put that together today. But
I've got it right here.
All right, there we go. There we go.
Because I love this so much. But okay, he's right here. It's probably too much glare, but that's him right there. So you can barely, really small.
Tilt the top of those cards towards the screen a bit. Now, yeah, you can see him in the bottom right corner, right above the O for optic. It's tough to see, but it's easier on the card on the left because he's right there. You can see his head, and you can see the 23 on his jersey on the winning tickets card.
Yep. Yeah. So,
and so Paul, Justin Bode put up a comment here. He goes, Panini testing the water. Is that kind of how you see it?
I really don't, because I think it's well, at least the first one with Scottie Pippen, I think it was probably inadvertent. I mean, it's so small in there, and I don't know why you'd want to test the water here. I mean, unless they had a sneak preview of what the license might see, which, that's, again, it's so redacted and such a top secret. I doubt they would have even seen it before. I think it's, when you release so many cards, you don't look up. I mean, there's quality control issues with every company. I probably put this down to an inadvertent quality control issue more than anything else.
So you think it wasn't deliberate to put him there?
I don't think it was deliberate at all. Okay. Or if it was deliberate, it was somebody lower on the food chain and it didn't get by their general counsel didn't know about it. That's probably a better way to say it. I don't think it was a tactical decision by Panini. Maybe somebody sneakily, like with the bong puffer Topps baseball card, somebody lower on the line decided to do it and stuck one by. But I don't think it was a evil intent by Panini to kick the tires and see what happens.
Well, we're speculating either way, but it's fun to speculate on for sure.
Yeah.
Lowell says this stuff is as equally petty as it is interesting. I love it. I like that. That makes sense.
And that's a good point, because when this lawsuit came out, I was really critical, not because it's frivolous. It's not frivolous. They're actually, if Upper Deck does have a license to sue, then it does make sense. They could bring a lawsuit here, but really over 2 cards, you're bringing a lawsuit. This is more of a phone call or a cease and desist letter where you say, "Hey guys, stop it. This is close enough. We're drawing the line in the sand. We won't do anything if now for this. If you promise to never do it again, but if you do it again, we're going to sue you." That's really what should happen, especially with these questions over the license, because if ultimately it turns out Upper Deck didn't have the rights that they purported that they say they have, what a strategic misstep.
Yeah, right, for sure. Okay, Rich Klein says that according to the guys at Panini at one of Dr. Beckett's hobby dinners, the NBA has to approve every Panini NBA card. So, and would their legal counsel be looking for occurrences of violations of the license granted to Upper Deck or the deal Upper Deck has with Michael Jordan?
I think they'd be looking for multiple issues, and that's another one where the puck could have just slipped by the goalie there. Because I mean, even if you're not looking for Michael Jordan in those, and maybe because these are Bulls players, you should look in the background for it. But it's a unique issue. It's never really popped up before, so I could see how they missed it. But and that's another reason why I don't think it's evil intent by Panini. I think it was inadvertent. I mean, I think Upper Deck's position is it was evil intent because they did release a Scottie Pippen card later where they actually cropped out Jordan. So at some point they did know it, but we'll the judge will ultimately sort it out for us, and we'll learn what actually transpired.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. I don't know. It doesn't seem like much is going to happen just from what I'm picking up from what you're putting down, I guess.
Yeah.
Joe says, Paul is our eye to the legal world. Thank you for your insights. I echo that. Thank you for joining again tonight, Paul. Paul Cashman says, litigation is really America's favorite pastime. We heard that before.
And there should be cards. There should be cards.
Yeah. Back to Dwight Gooden. Will Sandy says, Gooden is the most talented pitcher I've ever seen. Such a waste. Yeah, career cut short for all sorts of reasons, it seems like. Okay, and I want to see what EMC says here. A quick comment by him. I'm not sure if it's on topic, but we're going to read it. PSA cornered all of us and almost forced people to skip the grading phase altogether. I see. Back to the HGA. HGA gave us cool slabs, reasonable pricing, and guaranteed time returns. As they grow, they will accept more cards. For sure. They just need to scale, and time will tell if they're going to be able to capture a significant portion of the market or not. And as for the cool slabs, I think it's a personal preference if you like your slabs all different colors or not. But that'll be up to each collector to decide for themselves. Thank you for clarifying, EMC7. Okay, should we move on to the next one then? Sticking with Panini.
Yeah.
Now, this one I find interesting, Paul. I don't know much about it. I'm going to leave it to you to explain it to myself and everybody watching and listening. But it has to do with a 9-year-old, a small claims court, a 9-year-old in small claims court with respect to redemptions and versus Panini. Why don't you fill it in?
Yeah, we were going right from my favorite lawsuit of 2020 to my favorite lawsuit of 2021 here. So, I mean, everybody has experienced their redemption woes. Whether you get a redemption and the replacement card they send you is not what you want, or you have a 5-year, 6-year outstanding redemption. But before this lawsuit, I always pictured it from somebody who's in their 40s. That okay, it's not the end of my this is not the end all be all of my existence. I know bad things happen with redemptions. It's disappointing. But when it happens to a 9-year-old, this is the future of the hobby. These are sports fans at the beginning of their, loving of sports. So what we had here is a 9-year-old for Hanukkah received a gift of a pack of cards. And in there was a redemption for an autographed memorabilia for Claude Giroux. And it just happened to be her favorite player. So this, according to the complaint, just completely made her day. She was so super excited. And come to find out, after the redemption is sent in, Panini is not going to send a Giroux card. Instead, they're going to give her points for something else to do. She didn't like anything else. She wanted that card. And what helped her out a lot is her dad is actually a big-time lawyer in Philadelphia. So he prepared the small claims court complaint, filed it, and an astute, somebody found this, lawsuit, turned me onto it, and it's just amazing. It's it's not very often you see a 9-year-old taking on a giant like this. And it was set to go to trial. It got bumped because the trial date was set for when that horrible weather hit Texas. And because of the weather, because of power outages, there couldn't be any Zoom conferences or any travel. So it's now bumped until, I believe, April 8th is the trial is set. Now, this is a $25 card. Afterwards, I collect cards involved in lawsuits. That's part of the reason I do this. And so I went out to the eBays and I bought one of these cards. I mean, not the same one. It was numbered, less, and it was $25. So you have here a lawsuit that could have been avoided by Panini just buying a $25 card and sending it to them. Now, instead, they've had to retain a lawyer in Philadelphia. They're preparing for trial. And the trial, it's less than a month away. Ultimately, I think this lawsuit settles. It's, the fact that it's out there now, that people know about it, that people are watching it. There's just too much pressure on Panini. And being in small claims court, you don't know what's going to happen in small claims court. I was in small claims court for a company once, and it was because they were somebody sued them for the fact that I think it was basically over they were being accused of mind control. I mean, it was a troubled person that filed this lawsuit. We almost lost. We decided to settle the case. So you never know what's going to happen in small claims court. So if Panini thinks this is going to be a slam dunk, that's a heck of a roll of the dice there. So we'll keep watching this one. Hopefully in a month we'll have our trial, but I think it's going to probably go away confidentially. I think she's going to be very happy and get a very nice card, and then we'll never know what happened. But
so just clarify for me. You said it was a Claude Giroux card, Claude Giroux of the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yep.
And Panini. So Panini hasn't made hockey cards since 2013, I believe. Is it a card that stems from back then?
I believe it does. I didn't. The redemption wasn't in there, and it may have very well been an expired redemption. It didn't go into the complaint, and obviously in the complaint, it's going to put the case in the light best for the plaintiff. But I always have an issue with manufacturers saying that redemptions can expire. That's unique to the trading card world. Some viewers out there would know that gift cards can't expire. So there's laws saying that gift cards can't expire. So, if you do what you do in law school, it's called the slippery slope. Let's say you have a product and there's only one card and you get a redemption, and that's your one card, and then that expires. You bought a product that's worth nothing, so is that fair? That's not fair. That's not the way products should work. So according to the slippery slope, theory of how things work, I don't believe that redemptions can expire. Does Panini want a small claims court judge to make that law? It's kind of a gamble.
Yeah. There's a comment here from an anonymous Facebook user, says the optics of fighting a 9-year-old never looks good on a company.
No.
Big Worms made the comment here. Do you think it happened with a 9-year-old or the parent using her as bait?
From the complaint, I don't think so. It really seems to me that, reading the complaint and understanding, I don't know what was actually the theories and everything behind it, but it reads well. It makes sense. It passes the initial sniff test. If it does turn out that this is a lawyer that created this story to make it sound better, that's awful.
Yeah.
But I tend to think that why would a big time lawyer fight over a $25 card?
You've got better things to do with your time, but to teach your child a little bit about how the world works, I can understand that a bit more.
Right.
This Facebook user says leaf redemptions don't expire, so that's a little bit different than the big three card companies. I'll have to say. Charles Murphy says, "I'm a Philly guy. Our Flyers lost, and people around here aren't too happy with Giroux right now. I don't know that his current play will have any impact on the case, but I appreciate the comment from Charles Murphy." A few minutes ago, Daniel Busby says everyone is headed to eBay to buy Scottie Pippen 2017 optic cards right now to buy the case card. I hear that. I think that probably happened last time you were on as well.
Yep.
We got Corey Carr late but here. Welcome back, Corey. Luke Charlwood. Sorry, I'm 18. What did I miss? Oh, you're late. What did I miss? You're not that late, Luke. You're not that late. Peep says the complaint was filed with a crayon.
It was well typed out. It looks good. It's a good professional filing.
And I'll just bring up Lowell's comments. As much like gift cards legally can't expire within 5 years, redemptions shouldn't either. And we have Brian Gray tuning in from Leaf. BG, how are you? Thanks for being here. Says that's true. Leaf redemptions don't expire. So there we have it from the Leaf CEO himself. Thank you for advising everyone on that, Brian Gray. And Chris says, I like Upper Deck system for redemptions. A lot of the time you're getting some decent cards back either way. Yeah, they will send you something different if you can't get what is on the card. And I've seen a lot of people pretty happy with those replacement redemptions as of late. So Paul, this one's a question from Joe Perot. I'm going to bring it on the screen. He says, can Paul shed any light on whether there's a possibility that major sports could share rights for production, or if it is more likely that leagues are owned by one specific company? So we're in these single license eras right now where one sport, one manufacturer has a license. Brian Gray in the audience will tell us that, he's been kind of fighting against that himself, trying to get licenses over the years. What can you say to Joe, to the comment that Joe's making? Do you think that it's something that could come up for where we can move into multi-license situations?
I think, at least for now, that's a decision within that the leagues have to make. And I don't think there's been any traction with the leagues wanting to diversify. I think they're happy enough getting their money from one company, and competition and collectors be damned. That being said, Leaf is involved in a lawsuit with Upper Deck where they're challenging the exclusive license with the hockey league there. So depending on what happens, in that lawsuit, if it's found to be an illegal monopoly to actually have a license with only one manufacturer, I mean, it's a potential result of that lawsuit. Maybe things will open up, or even if there's a hint, maybe they'll open things up. But right now, as things are, I don't see exclusives going away, and that's why they did so well in the 2021 Annoyances tournament. I think they're here to stay, and they're not going to go away.
So if you had caught what he just said there, guys, he mentioned this 2020. We lost the Annoyances tournament, which we're going to talk about towards the end of the show. That's something that you manage and organize on Twitter, and it's fun. But we'll talk about that towards the end of the show. So you've now alluded to the Leaf versus Upper Deck, but we're going to talk about something before we dive more into that one, which is class action against Panini with respect to redemption. So not necessarily to do with a 9-year-old young lady, but this is a class action suit. So can you explain that? And also maybe why wouldn't they combine, if that would even be a thing? Why wouldn't the 9-year-old get involved with the class action?
So this is kind of the grand scale, large, oversized version of the 9-year-old lawsuit here. So originally what happened is this lawsuit was filed in federal court in Texas. And it was based off of redemptions. And it was seeking a class of every person who's ever received a redemption from Panini. The lawsuit had allegations that the redemptions weren't timely fulfilled, that they were a bait and switch because you have one player on there, you get a player you didn't want. So it was a lawsuit that raised basically every issue that you can imagine against redemptions. That lawsuit, it's a long story to get back to the beginning, really. Because it was in federal court, there are specific pleading requirements that you need to meet to be in federal court versus a state court. State courts have different requirements than a national court. And so Panini ended up getting that lawsuit dismissed, not on the merits. The court did not look at whether redemptions were legal or not. The federal court said, the way that you have this pled, the way that you have the class defined, I don't see enough evidence that there can be a class here. So because of that, the case was dismissed. So I thought that was the end of it because I didn't see the lawsuit get refiled or an appeal of that issue. But then it popped up again. It was refiled in state court this time. So we're back to the beginning. The lawsuit's just begun, and Panini has recently filed again their motion to dismiss. This time, more so focused on the merits of the case, whether redemptions are legal or not. So, if this case goes forward, if the case is ultimately dismissed right off the bat, well, then Panini wins, and everybody knows, okay, well, redemptions are legal, and we're stuck with them for the rest of our lives. We'll know a lot, more quickly, hopefully, on this. But it is funny because this lawsuit was pending for over a year, and we're just back to the beginning once more. The legal system in the United States sometimes moves slowly, and this case is one of those great examples of that.
Well, what is your? Go ahead.
Actually, to get back to your issue. So the 9-year-old would actually, if the court ultimately says this case can proceed, and if it's proper to be a class action, just because you file a case wanting it to be a class action, only the judge can decide whether it's going to be a class action or not. So if the judge would let the case proceed, and if the judge would say this class would actually include everybody, including 9-year-olds in this, that case could swallow the 9-year-old case. But they're on two different trajectories right here. We're probably going to be done with the 9-year-old lawsuit in April, and we'll be lucky to get a ruling in the larger case till maybe June or July.
So, what is your opinion on redemptions in terms of both when a card company exchanges out what the redemption card says you are going to receive as the purchaser of the product that it was within, and also the expiration of them that we see on Panini, Upper Deck, and Topps cards?
Yeah. So I understand redemptions are necessary evils. Athletes are busy, not just athletes, but anybody who has an autographed card. They're busy people, and putting together any product, there's so many moving parts that it's. I can't imagine the stress sometimes these product managers have to be under for it, because there's basically 121 different things that all have to work out exactly to get the product to go the way it is. So I understand the need for redemptions. I don't necessarily have a problem with redemptions if they're unable to get fulfilled and there is a substitute that's provided for it, so long as the substitute is fair. What I do have issues with, and what I think is one of the challenges in the Panini lawsuit, was that Panini would say that the redemptions would be, fulfilled within 6 months or 9 months. I'm not sure I don't remember exactly what the complaint alleged. And, having been a victim of the Panini redemption process, I know that I had some redemptions that were not timely fulfilled. And instead of actually getting, a response, or a response that would actually make me happy, I was just, kicked down the line. So, when it comes to the timing, I would think in an issue like that, that's a breach of contract. With redemptions expiring, I don't think they can expire. So I think that's a consumer fraud type claim. But that being said, I still think redemptions, I don't think redemptions, the concept of them, if executed properly, are wrong. I just, wish there was more follow through from some companies on those redemptions.
Yeah, as Justin says, they make sense to him, and like you said, you understand that they're necessary, and me too. I understand, and speaking with people from card companies, there's only so much they can do to retrieve back the cards with the autographs from the athletes in time for their packouts. So what are they supposed to do? It's a really, really tough situation for them. I think they hate them more than anybody, even the 9-year-old and the class action, the people who brought the class action suit to light. But in terms of expiring, that to me, I've never been a fan of that. And I've had people on the show talk about why they expire. And, they mention that it comes down to things like space. Where do we keep them? Logistics, organization, that sort of thing, which I understand that too, but I don't know that that's the proper out for them. I think that you buy a product, especially if you're buying a product that is past expiry on the redemption, that's sitting on the shelves at some card shops. That product has now lost value. So if you buy it, you're taking a big gamble that if you get a card with a redemption, you're SOL. But the owner of the card shop is now, it's like a sunk cost sitting on the shelf there. What's he supposed to do? And how good is he or she gonna feel to sell it to a customer who's gonna get skunked because they get an expired redemption? So, but I am aware that the card companies, they do have some programs in place where I don't know if all of them do. I know some, and by some I mean Upper Deck, where they will do some things for your expired redemptions, whether it's put you in a draw to win something or exchange them out, and another company, I don't remember if it's Upper Deck or Panini, will actually honor them a year past the redemption date, which is a nice, it's a concession in the right direction. Whether it's enough or not is up for everybody to decide for themselves.
And there are ways that if a manufacturer wanted a legal, what I would think is a completely bulletproof methodology for redemptions, is wrap the product. When you have the cellophane, wrap the product and say on here, that here, if you receive a redemption, here's what could possibly happen. By buying this product, I am agreeing to be bound by this contract. Whether that's legal or not, but it's a lot more, my big issues more are, consumer should be disclosed. What should be disclosed to consumers? Consumers should know the truth right from the beginning, and so if your box says on the back, and I don't even care if it's in, really small print, but just say on the box, what's possibly going to happen here? If you get a redemption, the redemption can expire. You can be out of luck. Say it all up front so that nobody's caught surprised by it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that would go a long way to help their case for sure. I want to say hello to Roy G. Good evening to you. And then Jeremy Pringle makes a comment. Is there any onus legally on the athlete to fulfill their part of the contract to provide signatures? Now, that's a great question. I'm going to let Paul respond to that to the extent that you can. But in talking to industry insiders in the past, and the question has come up, well, why don't you take action against the athlete if they don't send them back to you in time, being the card companies? And they will say to you, we're not going to make a claim against an athlete. We'll get blacklisted. No one's going to ever, no one will ever sign for us again. That would ruin the whole system. So they're really caught in a tough spot. But I like the way Jeremy Pringle words this in terms of, is there any onus legally on the athlete to fulfill the contract to sign them? What can you say about that, Paul?
Yeah, you're right. There is the trading card companies have a contract with each athlete, and they pay the athletes for each one of those autographs. So yes, not theoretically, there actually is an onus on the card or on the athlete to sign the cards and send the cards in. They are technically in breach of contract if they don't do that. But like you said, which trading card manufacturer is going to commit suicide by suing them for breach of contract? I mean, you're going to say, okay, Tom Brady, you didn't do you didn't sign, on time. We're going to sue you for that. Okay, fine. Sue me. I'm never going to do business with you again. There's 3 other companies out here. I'll just go sign with one of them.
And I'm going to text all my buddies in the NFL and tell them not to deal with you either.
Exactly. Yeah. And then now you're exclusive with the leagues in jeopardy. So it's kind of it's a contract. It's a breach of contract action that is hanging out there, but it's a paper tiger. You can't do anything with that. Sometimes the law is trumped by business, and here the business is going to say, we're not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Let's move on to the next topic that we have. Now, this one I have on my notes, I have it written down as Donald Spence versus Common Sense Coins with respect to a PSA 10 Michael Jordan card. And the Donald Spence, that's got nothing to do with JSA. That's James Spence or Jimmy Spence. So this is a completely different. Who's Donald Spence, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
Actually, I don't know. I thought there was some connection there just because of the amount of money spent in here. So I wish I could shed more light on that. But what we have here is Donald Spence had bought a Michael Jordan PSA 10 1986 Fleer card for $20,000. And within a couple of years, everybody's familiar with the current market. Jordan cards are just worth more and more all the time. By the time he was seeing these cards sold for $95,000, decided, hey, let's sell this one right here. It's if you make 4x return, over a matter of a couple of years, that's good enough. So he retained Memory Lane to help him sell the card. And Memory Lane had the idea that, let's get this card re-slabbed. Let's get it in a better slab, bring it to PSA, and that'll up the value, and then we'll sell it. PSA, however, when they got the card, said, there's issues here. This isn't a card that this isn't a card we slabbed. This is a forgery. It's not a real card. So sorry, we can't do anything about it. So at that point, Spence tries to work it out with the defendant in the case, with Common Sense, to try and get their money back. But Common Sense's position was, hey, we were duped too. We saw this out there. We thought this was a PSA 10. Our bad. But we're not the bad guys here. The bad guy is somebody else. That's who you should sue right now. Donald Spence did not like that answer. So he filed a lawsuit against them. And that's really where we are. It's a newer lawsuit. But with the concerns that are out there about fake graded cards that are out there, this is one of the first instances we've seen litigation actually on it.
Well, as we've seen from a few people in the room here, Brian Gray, Rich Klein, Mike Davis at Eastridge Sports, letting us know that Donald Spence is a high-profile collector with several top PSA registry sets. So, if you have that many great cards, you're probably, and you're that passionate of a collector, you're going to be PO'd. If you're not, I guess even if you're not, you're going to be super PO'd on that one. So, Common Sense. Who's Common Sense Coins? Just an eBay seller, an auction house? Who are they?
Yeah, it's an eBay seller. From what I can determine, it was an eBay seller. So it's, it's one of those instances too where I don't know about you. I'm not buying $20,000 cards. If I was going to buy a $20,000 card, I'd probably want to get an expert to look at that first. So I think part of what Common Sense is saying here is, you should have done your due diligence and you didn't. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here, because sometimes it is hard to go after the forgers here because they're not deep pockets. You don't know who they are. So there's a lot of money being exchanged here. So, who's the guilty party? So it'll be interesting to see if this case continues. This is another case where I can't imagine both sides are going to want to spend a lot of money on attorneys. Attorneys are, $400, $500 an hour. Pretty quickly, you've eaten up the difference between what this card's worth and what these companies actually have. Although PSA 10 Jordans right now are worth quite a bit.
Quite a bit more than $90,000 right now. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I just want to, so to recap, and for my own benefit at this point, because, when you're speaking, sometimes I'm looking at comments, so I might have missed if you said it, and I apologize if I did, but Donald Spence bought the card from Common Sense. Fake slab, fake card. I believe that's what you're saying.
Yep.
Common Sense said they were duped by somebody else. Will this case get to the point where there's an investigation as to where they got the card from and who they bought it from? It's a big card. I'm going to make an assumption, could be wrong, that they remember, have a record of who they bought the card from. Is this something that would go to law enforcement or FBI or whatever group it would be, whatever organization, to look into it and see who's the original forger of the card and the slab? That's a big deal, because if you're forging slabs, you're probably forging more than one of them.
Yeah, I think this is probably something that was turned over to the authorities, and the authorities are actually looking into it. I also think, as part of the case, discovery will be served. People will be looking into the history of this card. I'm sure, Spence is going to want to know that and is going to ask about that. As a plaintiff's attorney, right now, I'm a plaintiff's attorney, and a common saying is sue everybody and let the judge sort it out. So the more people you sue, the more guilty parties there are, especially here, where you'll have parties pointing at each other saying, you're the bad guy. No, you're the bad guy. That, if you goes to a jury and both sides are pointing at each other and the plaintiff's pointing at both of them, juries tend to side with plaintiffs in instances like that. So yes, ultimately it will come out who did Common Sense buy this card from. And I'm sure law enforcement is probably looking into this also.
I think it's important that our hobby, I know it's already on the radar of FBI and law enforcement, but as long as these things are happening, and there's certainly many more instances of it out there that we're not even aware of, I'm sure, there's going to be instances of fraud. There's people watching right now, myself perhaps, where we have fraudulent cards in our collection that we just do not know about. So It's nice to know that somebody is kind of fighting it and that they will go deeper to get some justice on this. Hopefully justice will be served. Tough to say whether I think it will or I'm skeptical it will be, but what about you? Do you think we're gonna see something come out of this? Like, just gut feel?
I don't think so. I think the parties will ultimately settle confidentially again. Most lawsuits settle, and most lawsuits settle confidentially, and we are none the wiser about that. So here, I really do side more with the plaintiff than the defendant. Sure, you were duped, but then you sold it. I mean, it's you sold it for $20,000. While Spence held it, that card only went up and up and up in value. So he's got lost economic costs from buying this card from you. He could have bought it from somebody else. It had been original, and he wouldn't be in this position. So he's not just lost $20,000. He's lost all that additional revenue he could have received.
Yeah, if he could get $500,000 for it right now, which would probably be a slam dunk for him. So that's $500,000. None of us want to lose that kind of money for sure.
No.
My man Shama Katecha says, I think we will see more of this as the market has gone crazy for highly graded cards. And that's a great point. I think we're all sort of cognizant of that and a little bit maybe paranoid about it even, or we should be somewhat. And I think to that end, we need to rely on the third-party authenticators to come up with, or whether it's fraud proof their slabs. I don't know if that's even a possible concept, but
it'll be an arms race. I mean, at some point, somebody will come out with a slab that can't be copied until it's copied, and then somebody else come up with another slab, and then what do you do with all the old inventory? It's good that I hope something like that does happen, but it's not going to stop it. Somebody will always find a way to work around it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, what could we do? And then the thought, when it comes to fake patches in cards, people have said, well, put some sort of invisible ink on the patch itself, or some glue under the patch that if you remove it, it's going to destroy the card. I thought, well, maybe some sort of invisible ink on the card itself, but that would be altering the card itself, and no one's going to send their card to a third-party authentication company or a grading company and have them add anything to their card. That is no longer a natural card. So that idea is no good, but take your PSA 10 Michael Jordan, and we're gonna mark it on the back. Yeah, who's gonna do that? Some way, but like that would be a solution, is adding some invisible mark onto your card. But I don't want an invisible mark on my card. I obviously don't want a visible mark, but I certainly don't want an invisible one either. But anyway, I'm glad it's not my job to figure that out. But I hope that we get somewhere with that for sure. Paul Denadai says, love the conversations with Paul. Thank you for joining us. Peter, thank you very, very much for joining us. And Brian Gray says that these fake slabs came out of Mexico, which is somewhat surprising to me when you think of this thing. My mind always goes to, China's where knockoffs in the fashion industry mostly come out of. You kind of think that might be consistent with sports cards. I don't know why, but what are anything to say on that? Do you have any insights into where these things could be coming from?
I don't actually know where they come from. And, while, maybe some of these ones are coming out of Mexico now, they will be coming out of every corner of the world at some point. Once somebody figures out how to do it, everybody else sees that there's money in it. And especially when it's high dollar values like this, there's just a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of demand for fake stuff out there. Especially in this industry. Was it Operation Bullpen said that there's potentially up to 80% of all sports memorabilia may be counterfeit, or not counterfeit, maybe fake. So it's just a lot of bad actors that are out there, a lot of smart bad actors that are out there. And I wouldn't be surprised if, there wasn't more fake stuff coming out of China or Europe or, anywhere else soon, or Denver,
Yeah. Michael Zigino says, great show tonight. I'm putting my Panini redemption rant together. I'm sure you're not alone. I'm sure lots of people have redemption rant. I think just about every collector in the hobby has a redemption rant that they just, that they go over in their head and they just wait to talk to somebody from a card company to let them have it. Jake at 90s B-Ball Cards, do we have any new info on the fake BGS slabs that have popped up? So I personally do not, Jake. To what extent are you aware of this, Paul? And do you have anything to add to it?
That's another topic that I'm watching, and I'm waiting for lawsuits on that one. Most of my, where I add value to the hobby is I have access to a lot of databases for legal filings, and I just pour over the legal filings and see what's there that most people either don't know that's out there or just can't access it. So until there's a lawsuit on these, I probably know just as much as everybody else on these.
All right. Well, thanks for chiming in. I want to welcome Joe Rabb, says, great content, guys. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Joe. And I just want to mention anyone who's new, if it's your first time watching the show, appreciate having you. And I want to thank Paul for being on Twitter and letting people know he was going to be here. So if you are new to Sports Cards Live, I welcome you. And I ask you to give us a subscribe on the YouTube channel, hit the thumbs up on the video. It helps the algorithm. And whatever help, I don't know what the help does, but it helps apparently. So thanks to everyone for who has subscribed, who's about to go subscribe, and for hitting the thumbs up button. Wise Collectibles says, are the older PSA slabs more possible to open it and replace the card in comparison to the new slabs? That's a great question. I don't know if it's a legal question, so to speak, but I really don't have any comment on that. Paul, any comment? And if
people have had a longer, they've had the older slabs for a longer time, so they know how to work with those more so than the newer slabs. And I imagine as the newer slabs come out, there's more security features that are built in. So, and that's again, that's going to be one of those problems. Let's say PSA comes up with a tamper-proof slab. Well, what do you do with all the old slabs that are out there? There's millions of slabs out there, and they're not going to replace them all for free.
Yeah. Yeah. Brian Gray mentions that a guy sent him a fake, I think he's saying a fake slab 5 years ago. He sent it back. That's the right thing to do. Return it if you catch it, otherwise you might have one in your collection right now.
Yeah.
Delond, welcome to the show. Quick question. PSA Silver membership allows you to get bulk discounts on subs. Thanks. I'm not sure, Delond. Check their website, psacard.com. Chris Dwornik says, put a second mystery serial number on the slab that the owner and grading company has. I mean, that's definitely the start of a brainstorm on a solution, I would say. So great suggestion, Chris. Justin Bowe just wants everybody to know that Mexico is fun. Mexico is a fun place for sure. Comment from Peeps. I don't know what this is related to, Paul. Maybe you do. What's going on with the welding helmet skulls?
So,
up there.
Okay. That is a trademark, patent, and copyright lawsuit that we did. 10 or 12 years ago. We represented owner. The middle helmet was our client's welding helmet skull. The two on either ends were the companies that made copies of them, and we brought a lawsuit and did some good there. And that's one of the fun things about doing intellectual property law is sometimes your clients are always their artists, their inventors. They do cool things, and every once in a while you get some cool things you can decorate your office with. So that's why those are there. I'm not a welder though.
While we're on that topic, you mentioned it very briefly about 10 or 15 minutes ago, but why don't you kind of let us know the cards over what would be your right shoulder? And I know from the last time, but just tell people a little bit about your collection on display.
Sure. So I collect cards that are involved in lawsuits. So the majority of the cards that I have up here are cards, this is a very litigious industry, as you can tell. I mean, we're only talking about lawsuits and legal issues from 2020 and 2021. I've been writing about legal issues in the hobby since 2010. And there's at least 4 lawsuits a year. So anytime there's a lawsuit with cards, I go out and get those cards, or try to get those cards. And so that's the vast majority of the collection there. I also do have some Project 2020 cards that are up there. That's I really enjoy collecting those. And then, there's actually one P70 card up there too. But the vast majority of my collection are cards involved in lawsuits.
And you even have, I believe you have a Project 2020 card up there that you have a legal issue with.
They're actually, where is it? This is a fun card. It was, there was actually a lawsuit that was filed over this. And we'll talk about it later. But there was an ADA claim brought against Topps. So through their website, and the person that brought the lawsuit based on trying to buy this card. So yes, that's how we have it.
Actually, not the one I was expecting. I thought I remembered one from when we had you on last time that maybe had to do with the holder it was in or something like that. Does that ring a bell?
That was so. The issues there were I had problems with, and a lot of people had with the holders. There's originally, as Project 2020 was listed on Topps' website, it was that it would have Ultra Point One Touch card holders, but then supply and demand fell apart, and they've had multiple different holders. So back then, I was raising the legal issues that I was not happy with the fact that their website said one thing and they were providing something else. So,
okay. So now there's another one we can talk about that later. I want to shout out here. We got Toa Hang in the house. He's saying, glad you're live. Been a slow weekend on the sports card YouTube front. Must be the Dallas Card Show. I think it's worth mentioning the Dallas Card Show is on this weekend. I've been trying to catch as much sort of live footage as I can on Instagram. Various people have been showing some, and boy, it's like 4 rooms in a big hotel. Seems like they are packed at the Dallas Card Show, and I'm looking forward to some great content coming out from there in the week ahead. And like most of us, I would sure love to be there this weekend. So, but if I was there, that'd be one less bit of YouTube content, hobby content on the airwaves tonight. So at least we're here filling that void. So thank you, Toa. Question from Shamak again here. He says, what's the biggest lawsuit the card hobby has ever seen?
Oh, there's so many lawsuits. I wouldn't say any of them are the biggest, as in biggest dollar value. Most of them, I would say, are mixed dollar values. The most fun lawsuit, which I think is the biggest lawsuit, was about 8-9 years ago. It was Upper Deck versus Upper Deck. It was where the European version of Upper Deck was suing the U.S. version of Upper Deck, and that was a really fun. It was a head scratcher to figure out, and it was a fun one to watch. If you just Google search my name and law of cards, you'll be able to pull up lots of different articles I've written on very many lawsuits. I don't put them in order of biggest that are out there. I put them as most fun. It's probably the best way to describe it.
Fair enough. Lee Haskins says, cool. What a cool collection, which I got to agree with that. Says, I've been collecting cards with famous people in the background, in audience. So cool to find one with Jordan in the background. And that's the subject of a lawsuit. That's pretty cool. Yep. I want to quickly shout out my man, Davey. I've lost the comment, but good evening to you, Davey. You're with us. Good evening to you as well, my friend. Okay, let's keep on going. I want to bring up this one here from Wise Collectibles. It says, apologies if this has already been discussed, but what would the legal ramifications be if it is someday discovered that someone else signed the Luka Doncic rookie cards?
Yeah, that's a very interesting issue, and you hear about stuff like that happening out there. There is, when you get a card, depending on what the card says, on the back, it says that these cards the autograph on this card is certified as being original. It's certified as being an actual, autograph of the person on the front of the card. So there's, built in a potential breach of contract or consumer fraud type action in those cards. Also, California has my favorite statute in the world. It's a memorabilia autograph statute that says if you can show that there is a false autograph on a card, you're entitled to a multiplier of damages. I think it's a 5 times multiplier of damages. Plus you get your attorney's fees and you get costs. So there are a lot of negative ramifications if a manufacturer is shown to have a fake autograph on a card. It hasn't been tested. I've always wanted to personally test that against the company. Opportunity hasn't. I mean, I've heard allegations like that before. You don't want to bring that lawsuit unless you have definitive proof, because it could really backfire on you. All the athlete has to, because I'm not an autograph expert. Most people aren't autograph experts. I've worked with autograph experts in other cases, and they would tell you that, sometimes a very different looking autograph is still from the same person. Over time, things change. People shorten their signatures. They change their signatures. So it's a really difficult lawsuit to bring. I hope to bring one someday on this topic, though.
And as Birds on the Bat says, a lot of people don't think he signed it. I've seen a lot of speculation that it's his mother's signature. I think people have made the comment that it almost looks more of a feminine signature, and I don't know what a feminine signature looks like necessarily, but maybe more loopy, bigger letters. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't have made that call myself. I've seen the autograph, and there's nothing fishy about it to me. I mean, I've seen some horrible, very short autographs in the hobby before, and it just looks like another one of those to me that doesn't necessarily represent the letters in his name, except for the 2 L's perhaps. But yeah. I guess who knows if we're going to ever know the truth behind that one. But
And that was an issue. That was an issue I actually looked at because I was intrigued by it at the time. And, again, I'm looking at it with a layman's eye more than anything else. It didn't jump out at me. Normally when I file a complaint to start a case, I want something, if a jury looks at it or a judge looks at it, they're just angry right off the bat. And there, you show both signatures and one of them's more arched to the right than the other one. And that's not going to infuriate a judge or a jury. So didn't look good enough for me to bring a lawsuit on.
Yeah. I think I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
Daniel Busby says, can we see some of Paul's collection or maybe before he logs off? Yeah, well, we can get to some of that towards the end of the show.
And also, I have a number of tweets out there where I do actually have threads going through quite a few of the cards in my collection. So, just go on Twitter, search for, me and my collection, and I'll share the links afterwards, just so you can see. But I've put that I put a lot of time putting together my collection, so I do like to share it quite often. So.
That's cool. It's always fun to enjoy your collection. And if you haven't noticed yet, everybody out there, Paul's Twitter handle is on the ticker right now. So feel free to give him a follow on Twitter. And if he puts those links out there, you'll be directed to his cards and the legal issues behind them, which is pretty interesting. Want to say good evening to Sports Cards Review. Thank you for joining us. Todd McDonald, appreciate the comment very much. Facebook user, I miss card shows so much for the last year. I would love to be there too.
Well, actually right now with everybody at the card show, now's the time to be on eBay. It is the best time to buy cards off eBay. That's
right. Everyone, a lot of big players are at the show right now. So might be a good time to do some bargain shopping on eBay, as Paul just mentioned. Toa says, I wouldn't mind his mom's signature. She is gorgeous. Yeah, hey, why not? She could be a lovely lady. We got Amish Dave Archer in the house. Good evening, Dave. Great to have you. Facebook user says, I would die laughing if they were fakes. Oh. Yeah, I wouldn't die laughing because a lot of people are going to be feeling ripped off. There's a lot of money tied up in Luka cards right now, several into autographed cards. So I think it'd be a little bit humorous quickly, and then you realize how many of your hobby brethren are like kicking themselves for buying them in the first place.
Yeah, I threw open my mouth. I mean, it's not like these people are like buying something that's, they're buying what looks to be a really good player who's going to, age well in the future. So it's not like this is a gamble. Everything's a gamble, but it's not like it's a stupid investment. So I wouldn't laugh for it. I feel sick for the people. It is true.
Well, here, look at this, 4.6 million times 5, right? The card, the Luka with an autograph just sold for $4.6 million. If there is a rule out there that says that you're entitled to a multiplier of 5 on the value, that might have been the best investment anyone ever made. If they really feel strongly that that's a fake autograph, they might have just turned 4 million into 20.
Yeah.
That's Michael Jordan PSA 10 returns over the last couple of years. Not too bad. Too bad. Okay, I want to go back. There was a comment from Toa that is going to prove to be right here. He says, I would love to hear more about the PSA trimming lawsuit. Did that ever get resolved? That's going to bring us right to the next topic on our agenda, Paul, which is an update on the Savoy versus PSA trimmed cards case. Would you mind setting the table for the case, giving us an update from last time and where we're at now?
Yeah. So this is a lawsuit, a while back. I think it's 2 years ago now. ESPN broke a story about, and I mean, not just ESPN, but there's a lot of people online and in forums that were discussing the fact that there were, they thought there was evidence of trimmed cards that had been graded by PSA. And PSA's position is it will not grade trimmed cards. Any modified cards, they will not be graded. So the fact that people were pointing out that there's questions with a 10, questions with a 9.5, they look like they're trimmed because they're bouncing in the slab. That there were issues there. So Savoy was the first lawsuit based on this. He brought the lawsuit alleging that he had purchased purchased cards that were trimmed and yet were still graded. His lawsuit also said that he, having purchased other PSA cards, that because this story came out, he thought the entire all graded cards had lost value in the economy because of that. This lawsuit, he brought it against PSA, Collectors Universe and PSA. He brought it against PWCC, and he brought it against Rick Probstein as well. The lawsuit's been going on for a couple of years now. It's kind of got a funny little history because it was originally filed in state court. The defendants moved the case to federal court, and you can do that if there are issues, of federal law, or if there's issues of multiple states being involved. You can move a case from state court to federal court. So that's what happened here. Now, so once the case moved to federal court, the defendants brought a motion to dismiss to get rid of the case, to say that there's no value in this case. And it really focused on the fact that the plaintiff, Savoy, did not identify the graded and trimmed card that he bought. So eventually it comes out it was a Ricky Henderson rookie card that he bought that he alleges that he believes it was trimmed. So the defendants jumped all over this. They said, wait, he doesn't even know if this card's trimmed. He's just saying, I believe it's trimmed. So we go through the motion to dismiss process. And ultimately, as the parties are fighting back and forth, Savoy's federal claim for RICO, the Racketeering and Corrupt Practices Act, was dismissed. And that was the only federal claim that was in this case. So because of that, Savoy said, hey, federal court, you don't have jurisdiction anymore. This case should be sent back to state court. Being that this is a case with high stakes and defense attorneys on the other side, they proceeded to file many, many briefs afterwards arguing why the case should remain in federal court. The judge, however, said, nope, I don't have any jurisdiction over this case anymore. It goes back to state court. So after a year of the case pending, we're back at square one, back in state court. The defendants have again filed their motions to dismiss, and we're almost exactly in the same position. Now, there was a settlement with Probstein in the case, confidential. We don't know what it is. And there's some fight that's under seal about how does that settlement affect the case. So it'll be interesting to see what's happening. I would love to know what's happening. It's moving so slowly that, we never know when we're going to get a ruling. But ultimately, soon there will be a ruling from the state court on whether or not this case can even proceed. It's been having trouble starting. They've lost some claims. So we'll see if it actually continues or not.
So when you say that the plaintiff said that, or they're accusing him of not knowing if it was trimmed, but he thinks it was trimmed, and that's just not good enough. I mean, I, along with many people watching right now, listening, have probably seen on the blowout forums a lot of the very detailed work that individuals have done to identify cards where they're proving that a before and after is the same card based on really unique, almost the fingerprint of the cards, the fibers of the paper themselves. They're identifying little spots here and there that it makes it somewhat indisputable that it's the same card. With evidence like that available in the public domain, and the Savoy plaintiff kind of seems like his legal counsel missed what would seem to be a very simple requirement of an action. It's like if the hobby wanted somebody to go after this particular issue, they got the wrong guy doing it.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
And that was one of the issues that I've had with the lawsuit for a long time. I've throughout the entire motion to dismiss process, I was pretty adamant that the case was going to get dismissed for that very reason. Again, when I file a complaint in a case, I wanted to tell a story. So if I was going to have a card that was trimmed in there, I would have definitive proof. I would have a expert having looked at it. I would have everything explained on why this card was definitively trimmed in there. And the fact that it's not there, you really question is this really the lawsuit to actually challenge these issues, which is a shame. When the lawsuit like this begins, you can't bring in all that other outside evidence. The judge is going to look at this plaintiff. He's going to look at his cards that he bought and try and figure out, is he an adequate representative for everybody else? And, unless Savoy somehow steps up, gets a expert to look at this, or, finds a better card in his collection. I mean, some of the cards that are out there, I mean, I remember seeing some where it's in the slab, and if you shake the slab, I mean, the card bounces back and forth and up and down. I mean, so it's not hard to show, if a card was trimmed, to actually show that, but he just doesn't in this lawsuit.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Terry Fortune says that BODA does great work. That's a reference to Blowout Detective Agency. I believe that's what that is an acronym for, being the just the collectors on the Blowout message boards that do the and I mean, these guys have identified seemingly dozens, if not hundreds of cards that have, I mean, I'm convinced 100% that, unless these guys are photoshopping this stuff themselves, just it's pretty convincing that there is an issue here. Yeah. Brian Gray says the best proof is serial numbered cards, because that makes good sense to me, and it's almost an argument for everything being serial numbered, but I don't think that's reasonable, nor necessarily to really. I mean, not all cards are worthy of forgery. So, but interesting stuff there. We're gonna just sort of step back a little bit here. We had a couple comments come in, so on the last issue that we spoke about. So this Facebook user says, how about the Anaheim Ducks rookie from NHL who used the auto pen? Collectors figured out it was an auto pen really quickly. Well, it wasn't an auto pen, it was a stamp he was using, apparently. And it was on his Upper Deck Ultimate Collection rookie card. His name was Devontae Smith Pelly, but the hobby quickly nicknamed him Devontae Stamp Pelly, which I still get a good laugh at. And I don't think anything really, well, I think what came of it, and this is pretty funny, not funny, just interesting. At the time that happened, I got a phone call from the NHLPA because of my involvement in the Hobby Insider message boards. And it's a hockey-centric message board community. And I own the website. And I got a phone call. I was very honored to receive this call from the NHLP, from their legal counsel, to tell me, I don't know why they picked me, but they did. It was like one of the weirdest phone calls I've gotten in my whole life, to tell me that, hey, we know what's going on. And by the way, we're going to be reissuing these cards to the people that own them, which I thought was, I'm like, hey, great. Thanks for letting me know. Well, right. Why are you letting me know? But thanks for letting me know. It's kind of funny, but so that's what this Facebook user is mentioning. But it wasn't an auto pen. It was a stamp. What's your opinion on using a stamp to sign your cards?
Yeah, it's the same thing with a stamp or an auto pen. And I saw the prior comment was talking about the Dak Prescott auto pens, and I've got one of those there up there too, because that is an illegal issue. These cards are certified as being an authentic signature, so you're looking at a breach of contract or a consumer fraud claim. But much like the hockey player that you're talking about there, Panini for the Dak auto pens replaced those. And, again, I think that's the correct result. I mean, again, that's not Panini likely doing anything evil. They're just, the player doesn't know. I would like to think the player didn't know what he was doing was wrong, wanted to timely meet his goals or his, obligations. And that's what happened. And it's, collectors just don't like that. So, yes, if the back of a card says it's certified as being an authentic signature and there's a stamp or an auto pen, that's not right. There are legal issues with that.
Yeah, and it seems to me like the NHLPA did recognize that and do something. I think you said Panini, but it was Upper Deck, just to be clear there.
Or the Dak, but the Dak auto pen was Panini. Yeah, sorry, didn't want to confuse you there.
No problem. Yeah. Okay, Lee Haskin says, how about issue with game worn jerseys not actually being game worn? Lots of photos and articles on this issue. Are you aware of any cases where anyone has brought action against a card company for claiming that a piece of memorabilia is game worn when in fact it wasn't?
I've not, and again, it would be the same issues for that. It would be a breach of contract type claim, but I don't remember what it was, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years ago, the disclaimers on game used memorabilia cards, basically says that, we're not authenticating that this is, ever a piece of ever used anything, whatever it is. I mean, there's some of the funniest disclaimers ever. But, if the back of the card says, we are authenticating that this is a game used patch and it wasn't, that's a potential breach of contract or a consumer fraud type claim. But you have to read the disclaimer. In all likelihood, the disclaimer says we're not authenticating that this was ever even worn, in a game. And there's a difference between game used and event worn. There are a lot of patches that are out there where, they're at a rookie signing and a rookie puts 7 jerseys on and they cut those up and, use those for cards. So it's just read the fine print for those.
Yeah, the companies have certainly evolved their disclaimer on the back of the cards over the last several years. My favorite is still that every single card that has an autograph or a piece of memorabilia says "congratulations" on the back of it. I know this is not a legal issue, but it's almost patronizing at this point, where you can get a jersey card that's worth $1.50 out of your pack, and it says "congratulations," like you just won the lottery on it. I'd love to see them just take that word off the back of cards. You know, we pay our hard-earned money for these cards. You don't need to congratulate us for it. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
I could be in the minority. I don't know. Here's a comment from Peeps. We'll get your opinion. In theory, couldn't artificial intelligence resolve the trimming fears? How would AI impact the laws, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's actually a good point, and it's somewhat timely. This week is either this week or last week. A patent actually issued on a automated process for authenticating cards, and some of the discussion in there was on using not necessarily AI, but algorithms to measure the size of cards, look at how the cut of these cards were cut. So it looks like the industry may at some point be moving more towards an automated process for determining whether cards were trimmed or not. Will it fully, get rid of such issues? Again, it's an arms race. Once, all you need to do is look at the algorithm and figure out a way to cheat it. So yes, at some point, this will probably be in the hobby. It will probably stop fraud or trimmed cards for a little bit, but then somebody will be smart enough to figure out how to trim a card and make it look like it came right off the press. Yeah.
Makes sense to me. Brian Gray, again, when he made the comment here that the best proof is serial numbered cards, and then a card numbered out of 99 goes from 70-30 centering to 50-50 centering. That card's no longer going to be wide enough to meet the requirements. I don't think at that point is it going to be within the tolerance of the size of the minimum size requirement that I know PSA. And I've noticed lately I'm seeing more and more people show PSA results, and more of these minimum size requirement stickers they're getting on their cards. So it seems like that they're starting to look closer at that, which I believe is also going to exclude some very legitimate cards as well, because there were different size cards back in the day.
Yeah. So quality control in the 70s and 80s is not the same as quality control nowadays. So yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of cards out there that are just naturally weird shaped.
Yeah. Michael mentions the DAC Auto Pen, so we got to that one. Thank you, Michael. Chris says, I'm amazed grading companies don't log serial numbers on graded cards. I get why they don't, but it's still a thing that should be done. I agree with that. I mean, for the extra little expense of putting a serial number on the slab, on the label, or the flip, whatever we're calling them these days, I think that would make good sense. I know with some companies you can add it for an extra fee, but I think it's almost a no-brainer. It's part of the card at that point. Yeah, it wasn't an auto pen. It was a DSP. Devontae Stampelli used a stamp. Dak Prescott was a big auto pen scandal. All right, just looking through some of these comments. Brian Grace is not against a card company, but against fraudsters who sold jerseys to Upper Deck and made implication that Steve Ryan at Upper Deck knew. So I think what he's saying is that, I'll let Brian Gray say what he's saying. I don't need to restate it, but that can happen, I'm sure. Actually, there was a felony criminal action that came from that. All right, I like this. What if they changed congratulations to hooray? You know what? I'd rather you cheer for me than congratulate me. So yeah, I'm okay with that. Hockey Guy 2006 for sure. Brian Gray says, on card doctoring, people are flattening the card to make oversized. Oh, so they're flattening it, putting pressure to expand the card so they can trim down the card and still measure. Wow. So that's a technique that I wasn't necessarily aware of. And boy, is that something that we got to be on the lookout for.
Right. That's sure. It's funny. I mean, just going to that whole arms race of, once they have some type of security feature, somebody figures out a way to beat it. And that's, it's blowing my mind too.
Yeah, I mean, we hear about cards that have been in those big lucite bricks for decades, and people often say that if your card has been squished by one of these things, you're going to have an issue with grading because the card has flattened. So That comment makes good sense. Leave it to Brian to know what is going on with the ins and outs of the hobby. Brian, thank you for the comment. Definitely adds to the quality tonight. Okay, let's well, he says then they measure the thickness. That's easy. Okay. easy for Hockey Guy 2006. I don't know how easy it is for the grading companies, but you got there has to be some way to identify that. Okay, let's go on to the next topic on our list, which is, and I don't know anything about this, but you told me American Disability Act claims. What does this have? What does a Disability Act have to do with sports cards?
So the first time that this popped up had to do with the Dwight Gooden Project 2020 card that I originally showed here. It was a lawsuit brought against Topps on behalf of a visually impaired individual who said that he tried to get onto Topps's website. He tried to purchase a card and was unable to. So the ADA has requirements that a website should be accessible by the visually impaired. There are a lot of lawsuits that are out there, as you can imagine. There are a lot of lawsuits that are out there. So this lawsuit was filed in 2020. And at the time the lawsuit was filed, I put out some, hints and tweets out there that, manufacturers and other people in the hobby, be on the lookout. This is just the first. And it was. Over the last month or so, Upper Deck was sued, Panini was sued, Beckett was sued, PSA was sued, Cryptozoic was recently, I think it was sued Friday. So all sued for the same reasons, that their web pages allegedly were not ADA compliant. And I understand that this is from the manufacturer standpoint, it's kind of a tough issue. When it comes to certain ADA requirements, they are explicitly explained in the American Disability Act statute of what you need to do to comply. When it comes to web pages and how web pages are going to be compliant to the visually impaired, there's less. Since it's a newer topic, the case law really hasn't developed what are those requirements. So there is a gray area that's out there. But when it comes to manufacturers or somebody who hasn't been sued on this yet, look at the complaint, see what's actually in there, see what's being alleged, make sure your website actually does what's required or what they say is required in there. And that's probably the easiest way to avoid being sued.
Okay, so is that all there is to this specific topic then? Like, do you think we're going to see anything come out of it, or are they just going to tweak their website and get on with their day?
I think I think all these issues will settle confidentially. I think their websites will change, and it would not shock me if every single participant in the hobby, every manufacturer, at some point is either named as a defendant or rapidly changes their website.
So the ambulance chasers out there in the website in the website business, there's some projects for you to get out there and help our hobby become ADA compliant.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the last topic. Hockey Guy says, go to a machine shop, find an inspector. They can measure the cards. There are people that measure the thickness of things all day long. I'm sure there are. And then Kickdown says, just for a little comedic interlude, I'd rather lick stamps and measure card thicknesses for a living. Back to the most recent one. Brian Gray says, I believe our website is now compliant. Good to hear, yes. Brian Gray.
Leaf has not been sued yet.
Yeah. Well, and if their website is fixed, and he goes on to say it was a very easy fix. So hopefully everyone else jumps on board with that. And we don't need to hear about this one again, or just that it's been satisfied and everyone has caught up with where they need to be.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one, and it's timely that we have Brian Gray with us. The next one is Leaf versus Upper Deck and Upper Deck versus Leaf. Why don't you let us know what this is about? I'm sure Brian, you're welcome to comment. I'll put them up on the screen if you have anything to add, but let's let Paul get us started.
Yeah, this is it's a lawsuit that we talked about last time we were on the show, and it's unfortunate because this case is a victim of COVID because it was ready for trial. It was going to go to trial, and Brian can correct me, but I think it was either early April or late March of 2020. The basis of this lawsuit, it's a Upper Deck suing Leaf and Leaf suing Upper Deck. Leaf is suing Upper Deck, alleging that there were antitrust issues with the way that Upper Deck deals with its distributors with hockey product. And Upper Deck was suing Leaf, saying that Leaf was using some of its exclusive athletes that it's not allowed, that it shouldn't be using. So this lawsuit's been going on for years. I think it's been going on since 2017. It's been in multiple courts. It's been consolidated. There's been lots of issues, lots of depositions, lots of money spent on this. And it was ready to go to trial. And but then COVID came. And it's been delayed. Not only is it's been delayed, but I believe the current trial date is late 2021. It may even be December of 2021. So, and that's quite disappointing. I am a trial attorney. I love going to trial. And there's nothing worse than stepping on that courthouse steps, getting ready to go, and you lose your trial date, because there's so much that goes into a trial. There's so many moving parts. There's so many people involved, and when you walk into that courtroom, you are on and you are ready. And then if you have to hit pause, you're not ready. The next thing you know, 6 months pass and you got to do it all again. And, I feel really bad for Brian and, actually for, Upper Deck not being able to, both of them get their stories out there. But I especially feel bad for the lawyers because they were ready to go. That's what they live for. And, now it's, 18 month delay, if not longer.
So Brian does let us know that December 1st, 2021, I guess that's the next date that something's going to happen.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's I guess that's either your trial date or you're ready for trial date. And that's, it's hopefully COVID's all dealt with there, all over. And, that was one of those lawsuits where if I have any free time or any ability, I definitely want to go down and be in the courtroom and watch that one.
No doubt. Well, keep us posted on that one. I'm going to go back to a comment from Colin Murray, back to the trimming issue. He says, many of the early Parkhurst were oversized. So Parkhurst Hockey, 1951, I think he's mostly referring to. And Gary Moser. And Gary Moser is the name. It rings a bell to me. I think he's the person who's kind of known for trimming the cards himself, kind of one of the main trimmers in the hobby. And so not someone that we're happy with. He would trim them to size, which got by PSA because the size was correct at that point in time. So interesting to know that cards can be trimmed to size, trimmed down to the proper size if they were oversized to begin with. And that happened back in those days due to quality control at the time. Or I wouldn't even call it quality control as much as just consistency. Quality control wasn't important back then. No one was trying to gem mint their cards back then. You just wanted the card for your binder, and you put glue on the back to put it in the album. So the size didn't matter, right?
Or I mean, you put it on your bike spokes. I mean,
even more, exactly. Even worse, for sure. Okay, yeah. Brian says that's the date. That's the trial date. So there we go.
Good.
Lunch is on him. Chris says Gary Moser is one of the biggest trimmers volume wise. Thanks, Chris. I was aware of that. Appreciate it though. Okay. So let's go on to the next topic then, which is also has to do with Leaf. I don't know anything about it, but you mentioned something to me about Leaf and a trademark registration. What's going on there?
So unfortunately, Leaf had a trademark registration on Leaf. Obviously, every company is going to get their trade name, their company name trademarked. Unfortunately, the trademark registration lapsed. And this happens more often than you think. In the United States, you have to, after a certain amount of time, you have to submit a use declaration saying, I have used this mark in commerce, and you have to pay a certain amount of money. Because you don't get a trademark registration in the US unless you are actually using that trademark in commerce. You're actually selling it. So Leaf attempted to re-get its trademark registration back. But in the meantime, there was a company out there that came out with its own trademark registration for a Dungeons and Dragons character named Molly Mock Tea Leaf. Now, the important thing is as Leaf at the end. That registration covered everything under the sun, including trading cards. Unfortunately for Leaf, that trademark application was filed before Leaf filed its second Leaf trademark application. So the trademark examiners told Leaf, you can't get your trademark yet. We're going to put it on hold because this other one's going to go to issue. And so the trademark office granted the Molly Mock Tea Leaf trademark registration, which Leaf is now opposing. And this is, I think this is going to probably work out well in Leaf's favor. Again, I try to collect cards involved in lawsuits. So I immediately went out to try and find a Molly Mock Tea Leaf trading card. There aren't any. So I would think a company like this, who's trying to probably just trademark the name for multiple reasons, if they don't have a trademark, if they don't have a trading card, they're not going to want to be involved in a lawsuit over getting a trading card. So I imagine if they're smart, they will just amend their application, remove that, and Leaf will return victorious to having its own trademark registration for its company's name. It's kind of funny that it happens, and I know a lot of people were kind of making fun of Leaf for the fact that their trade name did expire, but it happens all the time. It's a common thing that happens in the corporate world. So I don't hold it against them that happens, but it's worth a chuckle for me. Probably not for Brian though.
Yeah. Well, what I chuckle a little bit because I had Brian on last Saturday, and he meant he's well aware of this issue because he just purchased the ProSet brand, the ProSet trademark. And he mentioned on the show that, you have to use the trademark to keep it alive. So he's well aware of these laws, and I'm surprised it slipped past him. But as he mentions right there, it will be resolved imminently. So happy to hear, Brian.
Good. Yeah, I will be monitoring, and as soon as I see what I predict that their application will remove trading cards, I will, duly report it.
That's pretty. Sorry, BG, but a little bit funny. But hopefully, it all works out and doesn't cost you much money to fix. Or it might have already been rectified, as he says. So good on you. And good luck with, and we're glad to see ProSet back as well, and that you were able to nail down that brand for the Leaf family. Okay, sticking on the topic of trademark registrations, you mentioned to me last week that there's been a whole bunch by Panini and Upper Deck recently. Just again, this having you on the show for everybody watching is about staying apprised of what is going on in the legal world of the hobby, and the overall landscape, and trademarks are a part of it. Companies are always coming up with new names for insert sets, brands, all these things. What can you tell us about this, Paul? What are Panini and Upper Deck up to in terms of trademark registrations lately?
There's really right now, there's a land grab going on in the trading card world where a lot of, Panini has filed a large number of trademarks. And it looks like they filed trademarks on every word they've ever used on a card. Upper Deck decided to follow through and try and start doing that, but not to the level that Panini's done it. In fact, I've got some of the trademark, some of the words that Panini filed for. It filed for the word threads, legacy, choice, unparalleled, cornerstones, majestic, stars and stripes, eminence, kaboom, encased. I mean, they're filing on all these. Some of these are filings I think are correct, like Elite Extra Edition. That makes sense. That's a product that when you think of Elite Extra Edition, you think of Panini. Color Blast, Opulence. These are products that you think of when you think of Panini. But then there are some on there that I just question the filing, like Threads. When I think of the word threads, I think of Topps triple threads. Me too. And that's a product that Topps has a trademark registration for triple threads. Yet Panini is fighting over whether it should be able to get threads. And it's my position that you can't coexist. You cannot have a trademark registration on threads exist with a trademark registration on triple threads. Amusingly, the trademark office, Panini Panini's filings to try to get this emphasizes that there's a different amount of words and syllables, where they actually say for threads, threads is 1 syllable, whereas triple threads is 3 syllables. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody pretty funny on Twitter says, I really hope Panini's attorneys like standing before the examiner and going triple threads, doing claps for each, because that's the best use of a $500 per hour attorney. But the reason this affects everybody is because if a company gets a trademark registration on a word like this, they are basically removing it from the lexicon of any other company. So do you want Panini to be the only company to use the word threads or legacy or choice or encased? There's, some of these words are descriptive, and I don't think they should be owned by any one company. And some of these words are, part of, other phrases that other companies own. So that being said, Panini's filed 40 or 50 of these trademark applications, and they've received at least 30 of them. So their strategy is working. They are removing a lot of words from the lexicon from others. Upper Deck recently started to do this too with filings on, theirs are more focused on product names, OPG, Premier, things that you would actually associate with Upper Deck. So I think they're doing it right. But Panini's just, filing on any word that's out there. There is recourse out there for other manufacturers. If the trademark office would grant one of these words, manufacturers can oppose it. They can say, hey, here's our products. You need to actually shoot this one down. The first couple rounds of Panini's trademarks, though, the manufacturers sat on their hands and did nothing. And where I thought that was most concerning was with XRC. XRC is terminology, it's been used by, Beckett, maybe in the 80s, maybe the 90s for, extended rookie card. It's a generic term that's out there, but nobody opposed it. So Panini now owns a trademark registration for XRC. That's theirs. So, I think some manufacturers should have opposed that. They didn't. I think Beckett should have opposed it. They didn't. But, as long as Panini's allowed to keep grabbing stuff and nobody's going to stand in their way. And I'm actually impressed by Panini here, because I thought a lot of these filings were, I probably called them stupid. I'm certain I called them stupid. But, if it works and they actually get the words and they're removed and nobody else can use them, it's a brilliant legal strategy then.
Yeah, the XRC one, it sort of bothers me just simply because it's a term that we use as collectors, when we're not talking about a manufacturer or a brand of card. We're talking about all brands of cards over all years, pretty much when we use that term, or at least it was more prevalent in the 80s. But that one's a little somewhat offensive, I would say, just to the hobby overall. It's like going for the word rookie card,
Funny you say that, because one of their filings is for the rookies. I'm sure, the rookies was another one of their filings. But so far, the trademark office isn't letting them get that one. But yeah, they have another filing for the word one, O-N-E, one. So.
Wow. So you could never take a card and instead of putting digits on the back and the sequential numbering of the cards within a set, you couldn't switch it from like the numbers 1 and 2 to the letters, to spelling out those numbers. Not that you would want to, but that would be a unique change within a sports card.
So it would have to be used in a trademark type usage. So the name of the card would have to be one or something like that. But they, there are actually numbers of filings on one of one, tops filed for one of one. So they're not going to get that one.
No. Okay. Good to know that they won't. Good to know, because there's another one that we use across all brands and companies. So, okay. Want to say hello to Bob Lewis. You've been hanging out, enjoying the conversation. Much appreciated. Auburn 35 has a question for you, Paul. Do you have a number one chase card that's missing from your cards involved in lawsuits collection?
I do. So Back when I first started covering the hobby, there was a triple threads card for John Henry, the steel driving man. There was only 5 of these cards that was made. And a lawsuit was brought on this card because a former Topps employee was pictured on the card. And he says that he alleged that he didn't give rights to Topps to use his image on the card. The lawsuit settled confidentially, but there's only 5 of these cards that were out there, and this is 2010 or 2011, I believe, is when it was out there. And I wasn't as big of a spender on eBay as I currently am because of Project 2020 now. But the card popped up. One of these cards popped up on eBay, and it was $200. And my dumb collecting self said, okay, if it's $200 now, the product was just released, there'll be another one of these will pop up and it'll be less than $200 and I'll get that one. Well, to this day, I have not seen, I've got 3 different searches set up on eBay to ping if that card ever shows up. I so should have bought that card, and I regret not buying that card. But that's the #1 card that I'm chasing, that I'm looking for. It's my white whale. And I don't know if I'm ever going to get it because, I mean, very, very well, what could have happened is during that lawsuit, Topps could have found all the cards, collected them, and burned them. I mean, they might not exist. So, yeah, if I can go back in a time machine, that's the card I would, shell out $210 for and go get now.
So let me ask you this follow-up question, Paul. Are you ever going to stop searching for it?
No, I am not. I mean, until somebody confirms all 5 of them were burned, yeah. I will never stop. I mean, I have actually tweeted out there a couple times and said, hey, if anybody has these cards, I am willing to get ripped off. Please tell me I want this card. So about every 6 months, I do post out there that I'm looking for this card. But nobody's ever told me that they own it or would want to part with it.
Please, somebody fleece me on this darn thing. Yeah,
yeah, really. I will overpay.
I hear you. All right. I think this is Nick says, I hope Leaf does a retro card of the hologram, the Stanley Cup hologram from ProSet. Back to Brian Gray Leaf and having the ProSet brand. The Stanley Cup hologram, Paul, I don't know if you're aware, limited to 5,000 copies, was like the first real chase insert card, if in hockey, if not in the whole hobby, in my opinion. And it's kind of like the most important card from the ProSet era. And we did talk about it last week with Brian Gray. He said, he's not going to use the Stanley Cup, but there could be a nice companion type card to come out for it. So we'll watch for that. But if that was you, Nick, thank you for the comment. And I think it was Nick, because I hear someone down here say, Nick, no, Lord, no, just leave that alone. Never do it again. The hologram will grow in legend, value, and nostalgia. Very fair. Brian Gray says that Legacy's first use was in Fleer, which is now owned by Upper Deck. Back to the trademark issue, and you mentioned Legacy in the list of trademark applications that you were talking about.
And Legacy is currently rejected by the trademark office. At least last time I checked, it was. So the trademark office is at least doing a good job there. But if Legacy is ultimately allowed by the trademark office, I would really hope that Upper Deck would step up and oppose it.
Yeah, same here. I'm sure they would. Well, you got to think. Brian Gray says many of these have prior use, many of those names, which of course makes good sense. But like you said, Panini's being very aggressive. So just because there's prior use, if their competition is asleep at the wheel, go for it. Why not take a chance? You might get one of these things and really damage your competition.
It's great legal strategy, because I would not have thought to do it. And the fact that they're doing it and it's working for them, power to them.
Powered, yeah. Lee Haskin says, I heard eBay would not allow users to sell a basketball card with the Menendez brothers in the background audience courtside. Is that legal?
eBay, you agree to their terms of their terms and conditions when you register an account there, and I don't know it word for word, but it basically says eBay has ultimate choice in deciding what's listed and what's not listed. So given that it probably falls into a immoral or a scandalous type exception for products that they don't want up there, it's legal for eBay to actually not allow those cards to be sold.
Okay, fair enough. Michael says, can you give an example of an ADA compliant website? I'll just say, I think Brian Gray mentioned that his was, the Leaf website was. Do you have anything come to mind for you, Paul?
I don't. This isn't an area that I practice in. It's a developing one. So my advice, if somebody asked me for what would be a compliant website, would be to look at the complaint, look at what the plaintiffs in these cases say is missing from the websites. That might be a little overboard. But then again, you're making new consumers happy. You're opening up your website to more people potentially buying your products. So that's where I'd start to look at it. But yeah, allegedly Leaf is an ADA compliant website.
Okay. Question from Toa for you, for the legal mind that you are. Why isn't an exclusive license such as the NBA for Panini or Madden for video games not a monopoly?
It might be a monopoly, but it might be a legal monopoly. Monopolies aren't necessarily illegal in the United States unless they're doing something unlawful. And so that's really what you're looking at here. You can decide who you want to do business with, so long as you're not illegally hurting other companies with that. So I've always kind of had issues with exclusive licenses with leagues, mainly because I'm a collector and I like competition. So that kind of colors my legal view of it. But it's just a contractual issue. You need to have those additional wrongful steps afterwards to make something like that illegal.
Okay, thank you for that. Very interesting. Brian says, with respect to doing another Stanley Cup hologram, says we would never do it. Maybe Lord Stanley himself. So there's one of the ideas that they're obviously toying with, probably back with Greg Cohn and BG are probably talking about that. So I think that's a pretty cool idea, Brian. I think that would be a nice companion piece for the original hologram, of which I'm a big fan of, and I own about 3 copies of it right now. So I'd love to pair it with but you got to make the back look similar to the back of the original, because it's so unique. Keep it as close as you can. Just change the front. That'd be super cool. Super cool. I'd love it. I'll chase it for sure. For sure. Brian says exclusives are legal when you use them to stifle all competition of any kind, though no longer legal. Makes sense.
Yeah, that's an additional step that you need. So just having a contract where 2 companies are deciding only to do business with themselves is fine, so long as you're not doing that next step of hurting other competition, in unlawful ways.
Okay, here's a question,
like price fixing or something like that.
Right. Okay. Question here from Global Sports Card Investor. Good day there, guys. Good day to you, Global Sports Card Investor. He says, how can the industry as a whole protect against fraudulent sales? Now, I think what he's getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, Global Sports Card Investor, but I think what he's getting at is that we see there could be sales that are not actually being consummated, or that has been, like that. There was some just on social media, I saw a lot of skepticism towards the Luka logo man for $4.6 million, saying, even though they showed the check and they came out with it, is this thing legit? Just as an example of some skepticism that's out there, but also, obviously there's shill bidding that goes on, and we see the same eBay sellers relisting the same cards over and over again. I'll let you just take the question from there with that context.
Yeah, it's difficult. That each platform has their own protections. Shill bidding, if you see shill bidding on, say, eBay or something like that, you can report it to eBay, and they can police it for you. Auctions, shill bidding. I do remember there were some lawsuits by the FBI, by the government, against a number of auction houses, or people involved in the auction houses, who were doing shill bidding. So shill bidding in an auction is illegal. So I mean, there are protections that are built in. You just have to identify it and report it. That's probably the best way to handle it. You're never going to eliminate it all. You're going to miss some. It's too large of a hobby with too many people to catch every instance. But if you see it, report it.
Okay, so that's what we can do, guys, I guess, is continue to report suspicious activities as we see them. And I think there's a big segment of the hobby that does that. So kudos to them for looking out for everybody else who it just doesn't go ahead and do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? I'll caution people, though, There are times when something might look like a shill bid that just isn't a shill bid. And I know sometimes my bidding style on a card, I think about it afterwards. I think that could be looked at as shill bidding, except that I don't have 0 or under 10 feedback. I'm in the thousands. So I think it's less suspicious to an observer or someone who's looking at the bid history. But I will chip away at a higher bid all the time. Like, if there's a card that is currently at $50 and I'll bid 55, I'll bid 60, I'll get outbid 65, outbid 70, outbid. I'll keep going until I just stop. Sometimes I'll also do something where I'm willing to pay, like, say it's up to $500, but I don't want to pay 500. Someone else can pay 500. So I'll bid 499.99, which to a lot of people looks like a shill bid because, well, why wouldn't you just bid 500? Well, I didn't want to pay 500. I'll let someone else hit that 500. I'm willing to pay anything up to 500. So sometimes what looks like something like suspicious activity may not be. So you have to really I've seen people say things like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Well, there's reasons. You just don't have it within your mental capacity to formulate those reasons at this time because you're not in that person's head. Again, just a caution to people, before we throw out accusations, let's just be a little bit careful.
And that's the accusations are something that really troubles me because there are lawsuits that can be filed for business disparagement or even libel or slander. And I've seen a lot of people start posting about here's a bad eBay buyer or a bad eBay seller. They offer to return, never do business with this person. That's not the type of reporting that I would encourage people to do. If it's on eBay, report it to eBay. If you do it online like that as a public shaming and people stop doing business with somebody, if you are wrong, you're opening yourself up to a business disparagement potential suit or a libel or a slander suit. Now, I haven't seen anything like that in the hobby, but I don't think we're far off from seeing something like that because there's so much public shaming versus rather, approaching the actual auction runner, eBay or whoever's running the auction to report it. Somebody who can actually do something about it.
And just the magnitude of dollars that we're dealing in now is going to cause more and more, more of those public shaming or those false accusations, if they are false, are going to be more costly to the victim of that accusation. So we can see more people defending themselves, rightfully so at that point. Question from different topic, but similarly interesting. Lee Haskin says, what is your thought on the new tax law, which I don't think it's a tax law on eBay. It's just eBay actually enforcing some tax law or being forced to enforce tax law. Anyway, for reporting 1099s, which is an income slip. Will that change the hobby of selling cards on eBay? What are your thoughts on that, Paul?
I remember my income tax class from law school. I mean, this is 1996, and the take home of the first day was whatever income you get from whatever source, the U.S. government wants to tax that. When you're selling cards on eBay and you're making a profit off those cards, the U.S. government wants to tax that, and since it is income to you, it is taxable. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't necessarily know that, or if they do know that, they try to hide it because eBay is not issuing 1099s. When a 1099 is issued, it's reported to the federal government that this person had a certain amount of sales. So the federal government knows to look for this. The federal government doesn't automatically look for eBay sales for people, and they can't. They don't know what your handles are or what your names are. But this is a way that now is brought to the attention of the IRS. Typically, they used to issue 1099s. I don't know if it was for $10,000 a month. There was a threshold where 1099s were always issued for a higher threshold. The threshold's been reduced. So yes, you were always required to report your sales, the income you receive from sales. You just got lucky now. You're lucky until now. And now that it's reported, definitely, give it to your tax person or make sure you include it in your taxes because the U.S. government, you're making money. They want their portion of it.
My understanding is that the threshold was reduced from $10,000 to $600. I don't know if that's annual or monthly. Most likely it's annually, I would think. But there's a lot of talk in the hobby about this at this point in time. But to the second part of Lee's question, will this change the selling of cards? It doesn't make it as lucrative if you have to share your profit with the government, even if you've been required to do so all along. I mean, it's anyone's opinion what's going to happen from that. But also, what about, like, this is eBay. There's a lot of cash business in the hobby. What about cash business? And I mean, I've got a bit of tax experience. I do believe that it doesn't matter what form you're doing your business. If you are transacting and doing business with the intention of earning a profit, you are likely taxable on all of your profits within the hobby. But this means you get to now claim expenses that you travel to shows, of course, buying your inventory, probably your cell phone bill, your vehicle expenses, home office. You probably are able to claim a lot of this to reduce the taxable income from just your gross, from going from gross margin to net margin.
Right.
Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah. Then also the sales of cards where you didn't make any money and you lost money. There's an offset.
There's an offset.
So, I mean, yes, I mean, it definitely, for, I'd say, a casual user who is, flipping cards to try to, keep staying in the hobby. Well, you'd always lose your eBay fees. You're already, if you make $100, you actually made $90. Well, now, depending on your income tax bracket, you may lose another $18, another $27 off of that. So just keep that in mind. Your $100 sale is actually a $60 sale. Don't spend it all. Save some of it for the tax man.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, you're in the US talking about US tax law and issues to the extent that you're what you remember from your original tax courses. And I'm up in Canada, so you're going to have different laws in both countries for sure. So yeah, with whatever country you're in, don't necessarily take this as tax advice that applies to you, especially if you're listening to Paul when it comes to Canada or me when it comes to the US. Not that I've given any advice here tonight. Okay, back to some more comments. What's that?
Don't break the law.
Don't break. There you go. Report your income. Back to some comments. Brian Gray, with respect to shill bidding, says, interesting, shill bidding, or in brackets, he says house bidding, is legal in Arizona so long as auctioneers share this possibility in the official rules. I get it. My question is Arizona the only state that allows this? And what do you know about this, Paul?
I just learned something. I did not know shill bidding was legal so long as you disclose. I mean, I guess if you have terms and conditions that explains that we're allowing certain practices, you can get around laws with contracts. But yeah, I don't know. Be careful from Arizona-based auctions. Apparently.
Well, really, what I think it is there. It allows the auction house to set a reserve in a way, and I'm not advocating for it one way or the other, but that's, I think, sort of perhaps is what some of the rationale for that might be. All right. Bobby says, now some sellers block their bidders' names list, so you can't even tell who the bidder is and how much feedback they have. Although you can still see the feedback ranking. You just can't see the oh, no. I think even that might be blinded out now.
Oh, wow.
When you go to private bidding. I believe private bidding, you can't see anything. So, yeah, good point, Bobby. Thanks for bringing that up. Corey Carr says there's a fair amount of shill billing in 90s hockey cards right now. So, and Corey, no offense, but when a comment like that is made, that implies that you have evidence of it. And I'm not saying it isn't happening. I'm not that naive to think it isn't happening, but I want, it's a claim without evidence, I have to think. And I'm not a big fan of it on the show, but I get it. There's definitely something going on. I won't say definitely. There's most likely something going on out there. Toa, thank you very much for the comment. Facebook user, tonight, huge talk about it around. The Artifacts Minnesota Wild redemption is hitting $1,600 more than sitting. Connor, awesome. Corey Carr says, guys are driving up Hasek and Lidstrom raw rookies up to $90 on shill bids. All right, behind the tanks. Jeremy, would be interested to know your reasoning for chipping away during an auction. I've never thought it would be to the buyer's advantage to do anything other than snipe at auction. Sometimes I will, if it's about 5 minutes left and I may not be able to set a snipe later on, I will just kind of test things and see where it's at, and sometimes I just get excited and I'll bid 55. Nope. Outbid 56 is the new bid. I'll bid 57. Nope. And I'll just keep on it's almost like, I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I'm sure I can't be alone in this, but sometimes I'll just keep on bidding the next minimum bid just to see if I'm going to take the high bid from the previous high bidder. And if I do, great. I'm going to buy the card. If I don't, then I eventually stop. I'm not one of these. You'll never see me bidding, more than probably 6 times, let's say, or even 5 times, chipping away at a high bidder. But I will chip away here and there. I mean, it's a bid style, and it's totally legal and within the terms of auction. So, but that's really why it's just to test and see where things are at on the card. Okay, JJ, do you see a day when politicians start regulating online breakers? Paul,
I've always questioned the legality of breakers. This is an issue. I am not an expert on online sweepstakes laws or contest laws. So I wrote an article 6-7 years ago where I brought on somebody who is an online sweepstakes expert. And the article's out there, and I'll probably post it later if anyone's interested again. But there's a lot of things that you need to do to comply with sweepstakes and contest laws for breakers. And with online breakers, and you have potential breaks going on in 50 states, it's going to be very difficult to comply with all 50 laws. So I've always thought breaks were illegal. I've always thought there was a opportunity that some prosecutor would eventually go after them. I think in 2012, I think my bold prediction for 2013 was that somebody will prosecute a breaker, and here we are 8 years later, and it's never happened. So the possibilities out there. I just think there's a lot of other things that prosecutors rather look at than online breaking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess time will tell, right? The clock doesn't stop ticking on that. No. Lee, I like this comment. Great show. Never heard a legal show on sports cards. Really liked it. Thank you for joining, Lee. Glad you enjoyed. Compliment to Paul there. JJ says, have you ever litigated a dispute between a breaker and a consumer? I think the answer to that is simply no.
No. I actually have not even seen a lawsuit filed on that, because you'd imagine there are many instances of accused fraud where a breaker with breakers, and you would think some of those issues would eventually be litigated, but I've never even seen a lawsuit filed. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened. I can see every federal case that's filed. I can see some state court cases that are filed, but I can't see everything that's out there.
Fair. Mr. DeWeedy says, has anyone sued a grading company for false turnaround times? What are your thoughts on that? And that's a timely question.
It's that would turn on another breach of contract type action. If there's a contract with a grading company that says we will turn around in a certain amount of time, and they don't, you could potentially file a breach of contract action or a consumer fraud type action against a company for that. If there is no disclosed time period, you're pretty much at the mercy of those companies, though. You would need to have an explicit time that's given, and they would have to explicitly violate that. But then, really, what are your damages? I mean, I could see people saying that, well, my time to flip this rookie have already passed and he's already bottomed out. But the damages are so speculative in a case like that. I think it'd be pretty difficult to actually find, file, and win.
Well, and then the opposite has been true. If you send in cards to the grading companies, a year ago, and you're just getting them back now, you may be benefiting greatly that you didn't get them back last May or June and sell them then. So, you're not exactly giving them back the money that you got because of them. So
that's the lawsuit I would like to see.
Yeah. For sure. Paul laughs at me, says, I admit to problem gambling on chipping away at bids. Yeah, you're kind of like you're chasing, right? You're at that point, it's like you're just chasing your own money. But luckily, with every bid that doesn't put you at the high bidder, you're not out anything. You haven't bought anything yet. Terry does the same thing, calls it nibbling. I've heard that term before, nibbling away at someone's high bid. I'm not alone. Terry does that too. Very good, Terry. John Sportscar says, what about zero oversight on PSA? Why has no one legally looked at that? So I think we just talked about that comment. So, and when you say zero oversight on PSA, I don't know what regulatory body would have oversight on PSA except for their board of directors, their shareholders. And obviously that has all changed with the recent going private that's happened with Nat Turner and his group of investors. So it's really just the board of directors, even for a private company, that would have oversight over PSA and BGS.
Yeah, there's no government oversight that would be required for anything like that. So, I mean, the only oversight would be someone who thinks that they've been wronged by PSA bringing a lawsuit. So, like the Savoy lawsuit, that's your potential oversight. And unfortunately, well, fortunately or unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going very well. So,
Wrong guy.
might pass the oversight test.
Wrong guy leading the hobby on that one.
Yeah.
Behind the Tank says, I would think that the term estimate would be an easy out for the grading company's negligence or just missing their target return dates. I definitely think that, and I would have to look at it, as would anybody, but they obviously have language built into their terms on grading that allows them to miss their turnaround time. So I can't see there being legs under any claim against that. I just don't think they would have left themselves exposed like that. Okay. Eric S., what about, what does that say before I throw it up there? Yeah, we're not going to put that one up, Eric S. That's just a little bit too accusatory at this point in time. Okay, let's totally switch, Paul. We're past the 2-hour mark. I'm willing to keep going. If you are, how's your time?
Yeah, no, let's keep going.
All right, let's go. Okay, good. Let's talk about now, guys, if you're watching and you tuned in for Paul to hear all about the legal issues in the hobby, we are now ending that segment of the show. I'm not sending you away. I'm just letting you know, being fully transparent. We're now going to talk about some other just miscellaneous topics. So please do stick around, and we're glad to have you. And again, welcome if you just got here. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Sports Cards Live. Every Saturday night, I go live with a guest, and we talk about awesome things in the hobby. I'm going to throw up the banner, the ticker right now with upcoming episodes. Quickly go through them. Next Saturday, Tyler Nethercott, who's a VP with Sports Card Investor and is heavily involved in their Market Movers tool. March 27th, Billy Celio, product manager from Upper Deck, will be joining me. And just scheduled yesterday for, I believe it's April the 3rd, is Tim Getch, the founder and CEO of ComC, will be joining me, and we will be discussing the issues, the hard issues that they've been going through. And we're going to hear right from the CEO and founder on April the 3rd, about what is going on and what are they doing about all the challenges that they are having. I'm looking forward to that. And then the week after, it's not on the ticker, the week after, Ken Golden from Golden Auctions will be sitting right where Paul is, and we're going to talk about everything going on at Golden Auctions. And just to let you know, the show, we are booked all the way through about the middle of May at this point. So we got lots of shows. We are not slowing down, still coming. And the quality of guests just is remaining quite phenomenal, if I might say so myself. Okay, Paul, you run this tournament. I think we can call it a tournament on Twitter. You call it the Hobby Annoyances Tournament. So if anybody isn't following Paul on Twitter yet, here's his Twitter handle yet again. Paul, tell us what this thing is and what annoyance won the tournament last time, and where are we at this time?
Sure. So in 2020 was the first time I ran this tournament, and it was because there are a lot of issues that everybody, a lot of annoyances that are out there with the hobby, whether it's being on eBay and seeing somebody type in PSA 10 question mark for an ungraded card, or there's so many annoyances that are out there. I thought it would be fun to put together a field of 64 right around March and go through and see what was the most annoying thing out there in the hobby. Last year, 2020, what won was trimmed cards. This year, so I had a lot of suggestions for additional annoyances. So this year for 2021, we had, I believe, 24 play-in contestants to see if they could even get into the field of 64. And from the field of 64, this year we had the previous champion trimmed cards versus bots. And bots beat trimmed cards by a mile. So right now, the thing that's annoying collectors the most is bots. And we had a lot of really fun entrants in there. I thought this year, retail hoarders and flippers, I thought for sure that was going to win because there's so many pictures of people, 10 deep in the card aisle, sitting there with their chairs, making sure nobody else gets any cards. I thought for sure that it was their year, but bots sent them home in the semifinals, and then bots won it all.
So the hobby has spoken. Bots are the most annoying issue in the hobby right now versus trimmed cards, which was you said lost by a long shot this time. What I find interesting is that, and there's so much content out there about retail right now and how retail is a big problem in the hobby. The issue I have with that, just as how I approach the hobby, not with respect to Sports Cards Live, just as a collector and / investor, is that the issues around retail, and maybe I'm wrong on this, so someone fill me in if I'm not seeing something here, but the issues around retail only impact the current year's cards. That's all that's impacted is the current year's card. The hobby is 130 years old already. There's so many other issues in the hobby that are pervasive across all years, like card trimming, like shill bidding, like all these other problems. But people are worried about bots buying up basketball cards on Panini's website. That's your biggest problem in the hobby. Yeah, I think. Maybe that's who's answering who's playing who's responding or voting in the tournament. But is that really the biggest issue in the hobby? And maybe it is because it's important as far as new collectors and pumping new money, keeping the card companies alive. But what are your thoughts, Paul, based on what I just said?
I think there's a lot of recency bias in here because, bots have been, as a Project 2020 collector, while I am not interested in collecting the APs, there is daily complaints that the APs are sold out within a second of them popping up.
APs being the artist proofs that are limited to 20 cards each, and the bots try and snag them up early, just so we're clear.
Right. And so, and it's happening again with Project 70, where those cards originally were sold for $99 by Topps, but then they would be flipped that same day for $300. So, I think because you have a recency bias with it, but you also have somebody, making a lot of money really quickly off such cards. I think that's, one of those things that affected them. But it's really, from looking at the entrants and what did best, there definitely is. It's more focused on eBay complaints or complaints that have popped up over the last years. Some of my, cards, I thought would go better would be, fake autographs. I thought that would do better, or sloppy autographs. There's a lot of cards, a lot of issues like that exclusive licenses with leagues, exclusive licenses with players, but those were weeded out, and some of them didn't even make it to the final 8, let alone the final 4.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But it's a fun tournament. I'm going to do it every year. I try and do it, get it all done before March. And so if anybody has any additional suggestions, I think next year is looking that we might have 40 playing games before we even get to the field of 64. So I'll have to figure out a way to speed that up. Maybe have 2 or 3 matches a day instead of just 2 matches a day, just to somehow get through it and not do it for a whole year.
Plenty of annoyances in our hobby, that is for sure. But let's not let them outweigh the benefits of the hobby that brings us joy. I know for me, even if I'm annoyed with something in my regular life, I can just sort of look at my cards or think about them. And even for those few seconds, you find the hobby, you get some hobby peace of mind sort of thing. A couple of suggestions came in here. Big Unit says eBay return policy, a #1 seed. Toa says second to bots is backdoor retail, which is another retail related issue. Global says grading turnaround times are my big issue at the moment. Hockey Guy says, did any of the entries surprise either of you how far they made it in the bracket?
Yeah, well, bots was my big surprise because again, like you're saying, bots are really only affecting the current product, and it's not even it's some products will be sold out because of bots, or sometimes you'll miss certain cards. So I mean, bots don't affect me. So that's what really surprised me about how well they performed. And again, I thought it was going to be a retail. I thought retail, hoarders, and flippers. I thought that was going to be the big winner this year, but nope, it wasn't.
Yeah, they don't affect me either, but I'm sensitive to it for those that it does. I like Bill's comment, bots voting for themselves. That's how they won.
It's pretty good.
Comment of the night right there. I love it. That's hilarious. Chris says bots are prevalent in all collectibles at this point. Pretty much any limited release or coveted item has bots snapping online listings up within minutes and seconds. So definitely an issue out there.
There are ways to get around bots, though, or I mean, to actually eliminate bots, like a Top Shot. I think that's done a very good job of eliminating bots, or even people with multiple accounts purchasing cards. So there are ways to address them. I just think manufacturers really don't want to address them because they're getting sales.
Yeah. Well, I think they'd sell anyway, so I wonder about that. But the question did come up earlier, and it was off topic at the time. But now that we're kind of within this world of technology, there's all this talk right now about NFTs. Top Shot certainly leading the way as far as NFTs in the sports collecting world goes. Do you have any thoughts on it? Are you involved in NFTs? Are you involved in Top Shot? Do you think NFTs are here to stay? Do you think Top Shot has legs? Give us your thoughts.
I think NFTs, I think they're here to stay. I think it's a very interesting concept. Now, to me, legally looking at it that way, or as a potential business looking at it, I think they're interesting. As a collector, I have no interest in most NFTs. I mean, I buy cards so I can display them. That's the number one way that I view things. And, for the NFTs that I've seen, at least in the trading card world, I can't really display those or show off my collection to people. Now, I have seen some NFTs that make more sense to me. And this is more in the art world, where it's not necessarily a art print. It's actually there's actually movement involved in the NFT. So, it's kind of a little short or something like that. That to me makes more sense, especially if you can guarantee exclusivity that nobody else can see. I understand the argument. I mean, Top Shot, really, I'm just baffled by collectors on Top Shot that you'd want to have to own a clip. Especially when there's that clip can be seen on ESPN or on YouTube or seen somewhere else. I mean, there it really isn't exclusivity for what you see. There's exclusivity with the serial numbering or the actual the actual token itself, but not necessarily on what you see and what pleases you. But that being said, I understand the argument of, well, what's to stop you from just going and printing a card out? You can print a card that looks exactly like a card. It just doesn't have the austerity of the actual card. So I understand it. And I've talked to my kids about it. My sons are 14 and 12, and they would definitely collect something online, something that's like that. So it's a future market. It's an emerging market. And I'm fascinated to watch it. And I really want to see where it goes. And, some of the things I was thinking about is, I think it would really help, charities or organizations that require donations. I mean, could you imagine NASA offering, NFTs of, you get the exclusive looks of these videos of Mars right now? I mean, they're just the future of what you can get with this it's pretty amazing. I want to see where it goes. I don't think I'm going to be buying though.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting perspective that you just laid out there, and it's a great way to fundraise for both charitable and non-charitable, or public type initiatives in terms of a NASA sort of that. Very interesting, very interesting. As far as Top Shot goes, one of the big issues that traditional tangible sports card collectors have is that they think that, or they're worried, considering where the market's gone in the last year, 2 years, that, hey, this thing is out there now, this Top Shot thing's out there, and it's taking money out of the hobby, out of the sports card hobby, and putting it into the Top Shot environment. And my response to that is, like, if I was a Top Shot millionaire right now, I would be cashing out, because I don't know how stable it is. If I could, and I understand there's obviously challenges with getting your money out of the system, but I'd be cashing out and put it out, and actually the opposite would happen. I'd be putting it into sports cards.
Yeah,
because it's tangible. It's to me, it's a more reliable asset. So I could actually see Top Shot potentially benefiting the hobby versus taking away from the hobby. If some of these guys that got in early, or even got in more recently, make a lot of money in it, pull it out and buy cards. Because I think that there's way fewer people out there who are going to want to collect these moments versus collect sports cards, with the exception being potentially people like your kids who are younger and speak that language a little bit more fluently than guys like us, the guys our age do, or our vintage type of thing. So, but again, I could see it. Maybe it's just maybe it just balances out. Maybe it's a zero-sum game at the end of the day. Some people are going to go out of sports cards and into Top Shot, and whatever other deals Dapper Labs makes with NHL, MLB, NFL, soccer, whoever. But then you're going to have the people that are going to take the money out and put it into sports cards because, hey, I just turned $1,000 into $100,000. Now I can go buy myself a Michael Jordan PSA 9 rookie or two of them, and cost me $1,000 like it would have in 2008. So.
Yeah, one of the questions somebody asked me was, does Panini have some legal recourse here, against Top Shot or the NBA? Because, Panini has the exclusive with the NBA. Is this, chipping away into Panini's earnings? That turns on the contracts that the companies have with each other. So, I'm not privy to those. I don't know what it is, but if Top Shot is eating into Panini's, sales, they'd be the one to know. And I don't really see that happening because, I'm seeing, Panini product released at ever higher prices on the market. Every time everything's released, everyone's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's that. And then it sells out. So I don't think Top Shot's hurting Panini. I don't think the money going into Top Shot's not going into other aspects of the hobby. I think, like you said, I think there are people probably like with Project 2020. They did well in Project 2020 cards, sold those, and went and bought the original cards.
Right.
That are out there. So
that's what I see happening more, especially to the extent that the people in Top Shot come from sports cards, because you don't just drop sports cards and go into Top Shot if you're a true sports card gal. I don't think. Global says, I think once you're able to get your money out of Top Shot easier, it will die down a little. Thoughts on that? Maybe, because it seems like easy money right now if you can get your money back. So will it die down? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think it could be the opposite. Once you can get money out easier, and then you're more likely to put more money in. One of the reasons I haven't even looked at it's because of the long wait list you have to get your money out. That always worries me. So I would think the more liquid it is, the better invest. That's what you look for as an investment. How liquid is it? The more liquid it is, the better an investment it is.
And the more other people are going to find out that, hey, you can now get your money out. Okay, well now that barrier to entry for people is going to disappear, and they're going to be willing to take a shot at it because they know they can eventually get their money out probably quicker than they can right now. So that makes sense to me. Peter says the thing is, if you turned your $100 into $100K, somebody's left holding the bag. If the market drops out, there has to be a loser. Well, yes, but no one's left holding the bag until the market drops out. So, but there's always going to be a loser in these things, right?
Project 2020 with the Memorial Day Massacre. There's going to be a Top Shot Memorial Day. It might not be Memorial Day, but there might be a Memorial Day Massacre. It's coming at some point.
Yeah, could happen. And but I think, so if you turned your 100 into 100,000 and then it came back down to 100, you're just kicking yourself for not selling when it was at 100. But if you did sell it for 100, the person that bought it for 100, in a way, I don't have much pity for that, because it is it's just everything about it is risky just because it's intangible. I think everything about it is risky. Not to say that these things won't hold their value. I don't know. I don't understand the underlying technology enough. I have a bit of an idea about how the blockchain works with hashes and all that, but I don't necessarily understand how you skin a token with a moment and how that all works. But in any event, it's interesting. I hope to learn more about it. I'm sure a lot of people do too. Toa says, I agree. If you're able to get your money out, the more money you'll reinvest back into it. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me, for sure. Paul, let's just talk a bit about what you're up to in terms of, you've mentioned a bit, but you collected Project 2020. What are you doing with Project 70?
Yeah, so Project 2020, I really enjoyed Project 2020. I ended up collecting 2 players, Trout and Gooden, and then I also collected 3 artists, Beck, JK5, and Ermsey. So when Project 70 came around, I was somewhat excited, somewhat concerned, because I spent more money on Project 2020 than I intended. I'm less excited about Project 70. I'm still collecting it. I'm collecting Ermsey, I'm collecting JK5, and I'm collecting Alex Pardee. I really like what he's doing as a new artist. But other than that, I really see, it seems almost stale to me, except for the artists that I like. I'm not seeing anything really that's blowing me away, and that's what I liked about Project 2020. It was something that I'd never seen before, and for Project 70, we're seeing the same thing we hadn't seen before, but now it's year 2. So I think and again, everyone's only released their first cards. A lot of the new artists are just learning the ropes. I would like to see more people taking risks and pushing the edges on this, and that's why I think the Alex Pardee card, which is turning Acuna into a monster. I mean, it's a great looking card. It's a great looking concept, and it was a big risk. I hope to see more like that in the future, or otherwise, I'm not going to spend nearly as much as I thought I would.
So, how many cards is it? I believe it's like 1,000 or 1,050 cards. Project 70. Like, is that too many?
That's way too many. I mean, I was an avid Project 2020 collector, and I can honestly say that last 100 cards, I was burned out. I was just going through the motions. I was committed to certain sets, so I just wanted to complete the sets. I wasn't happy doing it. I wasn't happy getting them. I really suffered burnout, and that was at 300. There's potentially an additional 700 cards to go through for this set. So I think burnout's a very real issue. Having suffered it, I think it's a very real potential issue, and we'll see where it goes, especially since I think a lot of the product, it's not blowing me away. So we'll see where it goes. But I mean, I think the print runs will, start to get lower. As the print runs get lower, it may have, that, kind of a reverse Project 2020, where Project 2020 started low and those are the most valuable cards. Well, maybe Project 70 at some point dips low on some of the cards, and then everybody gets interested because they like, low print runs, and then it skyrockets and goes from there.
Yeah, if you're loyal to these projects, the Topps projects, you're now, by the end of Project 70, you're going to be up to over 1,400 cards, and they all come they all come with the sticker sealing the magnetic holder. I mean, I don't know if anybody can lift that, let alone where do you store 1,000 cards in magnet? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have that, but that's just a big addition to your collection if you need to have them all. What about, back when Project 2020 was really hot last summer, one of the things that I was happy about was that I thought, well, hey, this is great. There's these 20 artists. They all have at least 100,000 followers on social media platforms. This has to grow the hobby. Some of these people are going to research and look into other areas of the hobby besides just Topps Project 2020. Do you have any feel for whether or not the hobby retained any of those artist collectors versus Topps and baseball card collectors?
I don't know about the artist collectors. I do know Project 2020 brought a lot of collectors who stopped back into the hobby. Kind of like me when I got back into the hobby, I was out for a while, and then I saw, hey, look, there's cards with autographs, there's cards with relics. I'd never seen that before, and it brought me back in. I think that's, the consequence of Project 2020 is it brought in a lot of people who had quit collecting and brought them back in. I don't know about how many artists, how many people that followed the art crowd then crossed over to do cards. You don't really see that much on social media about that. It's more so the old retired collectors, coming back into it and collecting again.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense to me. Last topic I have on the list. I mean, I've got two left actually. One being just because it's new since you were last on the show and it's out there are the fractional ownership companies. There's several of them now. I know you're not that involved in them, but even from a legal perspective, do you think that and if you don't have an answer, it's totally understandable, Paul, but one of the issues people have with the fractional ownership company is the regulation over it. And do they actually own the card? And what's going to happen when they sell, and who's deciding if they sell or they don't, and all these different things. My understanding is that there is some level of SEC regulation over these companies. Do you have any insight or thoughts on that? And if these things, if this new business model in our hobby is not legal, but is the regulation over it going to be enough to keep it where it's going to exist and carry forward and evolve into what will be a big part of our hobby moving forward?
I think it opens up another. It's like investing in any other properties out there. Instead of investing in, say, a timeshare or something else, you're investing in a asset, and that asset could be sold later on. It just happens to be a card, or a collection of cards. I've been asked by some people to review contracts that they would have with companies that are in this venue, and they're confusing contracts. I mean, it's basically you're going to own partial ownership of a security in a card, but you're never going to see the card. You're never going to touch the card, and that's part of the fun of cards. So I think it's going to be there because, you often see that, trading cards, the high value trading cards have outperformed the stock market. They are a very viable asset. So from that standpoint, whether fractional ownership was designed for card collectors or investors, just plain old investors, I think they're going to stick around for quite a while. And I kind of like the aggregator model of, I guess it's kind of a combination of fractional ownership and aggregation. It's just you'll have basically a fund go out and buy as much product as they can, and then ultimately knowing that they're going to turn around and sell that off for a profit. So I think these unique ways to invest in the hobby, I think they're there. For someone like me who's more of a collector than an investor, that's not necessarily good news because it's going to drive prices up.
It already is.
Yeah, and so that's and I think we're seeing that with new boxes and what new cards are costing, but I think it's here to stay. It's not going to go away.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going away either. And as far as regulation goes, it's just nice to know that the SEC is overseeing it. I don't know how much time they're giving to it, but they're at least complying. What do you want to say?
So potentially there is. So there are ways that you have to comply with security laws, but not necessarily the SEC. Depending on the number of investors that you have or the value of the investment, there are exemptions to make sure you don't have to comply with the SEC laws. You just have to comply with other security laws that are out there. So Some of the fractional ownership, I think they try to limit the number of investors in order to do that. So we'll see. I mean, it's a difference between a penny stock and a real stock. You know what you're getting when you get involved with a smaller one rather than a larger fractional ownership.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to bring up a comment that is from about half an hour ago. My buddy Mike at Eastridge, he says, Paul, even though it wasn't in a lawsuit, do you have the 2007 Upper Deck Sweet Spot Michael Beisner card that Upper Deck had to recall all unsold product per Major League Baseball?
So I'm not sure exactly on that card, but I do know there was a lawsuit there that had to do with Upper Deck taking some cards back, and when it came to, I don't know if that's the right lawsuit that I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the MLB lawsuit where Upper Deck came out with cards allegedly without any MLB logos, but just an arm crossed or whatever it was. For that product, yes, I own that complete set. So it was involved in a lawsuit, and I couldn't turn that one down, so I definitely got it. I don't know if UD was required to recall all the product, but I do own it. Right
on. Here's a great comment from Got Sports Car. It says, "Sorry I'm late, Jeremy and Paul."
Yeah. What did I miss?
Got, it's great to have you, but yeah, we are over 2.5 hours in. So welcome to the show. Great to have you as always. Toa very nicely says, thanks for the great live tonight. Learned a lot. Enjoyed it. Hit the like button, guys. Thank you so much, Toa Hang. Great to have you as always. JJ, love this comment. Thank you so much. Props for keeping your content fresh and interesting. Nothing worse than the same repetitive bleep. I appreciate that, JJ. Thank you very much. Well, look, Paul, I mean, the last topic I have, it simply says the market in general, because it's been 9 months since you've been on the show. The hobby's blown up. I mean, we've kind of alluded to some things here and there. And we're gonna kind of finish off the episode now. We'll wrap things up. So I'll call for final comments from the chat, guys. Anything last minute comments, questions, throw them in there, because we're gonna wind this down. So while you're doing that, Paul, the market in general, it's blown up. What are you seeing from St. Louis, Missouri right now in terms of how crazy the prices are, and just the pent up frustration the hobby has with no card shows? And now there are in Dallas. And I mean, there's more card shows than just in Dallas. I think there's a few this weekend throughout the United States. But what do you think of the state of the market right now?
Yeah, it's unfortunately it has priced me out of a lot of the cards that I would like to collect. Earlier we alluded that I started collecting. Dwight Gooden was what drove me to collecting in 1986, and unfortunately because of that, I did it at the expense of Michael Jordan. In fact, I did trade some Fleer Jordans for others Dwight Goodens. So I have a healthy binder of Dwight Gooden rookies that are, valueless, and a lot of remorse for the Jordans that I, traded away. And I still don't have a Fleer 86 Jordan. And, I'm at the point where I would very much so like to add one to my collection. And the only ones I've added are, fake ones, fake reprints, because there's been lawsuits involved, like the Spence lawsuit. So I do have some fake Jordans in my collection, but I don't have a real Jordan. And it's a shame, because I would very much like to have one, but I am priced out of the market on that. And I'm seeing it, across in other areas too. Like with Project 2020, I wanted to, I do have a Trout rookie. I do have a Gooden rookie, so I was able to pair those. I wanted to do a Ricky Henderson collection and a Cal Ripken collection also. But, the market, again, has priced me out of getting those cards for a realistic price. So it's I know eventually, well, you'd think eventually it'll come back down, and I'd like to, buy low, but I'm certainly not buying high right now. I'm buying more new product than I am buying older product. So that's, the biggest effect I've seen, and, other people have seen here. But I would like to go back and, buy some of the, the true tested products that, are aging well, products I should have picked up earlier and I didn't.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of us have that exact same, hindsight right now, where it's just 2020. That's really sums it up, right? If we could all go back, but hey, we cannot. So hopefully some of you picked up some great cards along the way, and you're experiencing some benefits of the state of the market as it is right now. And, but I know all of us wish we could turn back the clock. That is for sure. So, all right, man. Well, listen, I think we can wrap this up. We've gone on quite a long time. So thank you for all your time tonight, Paul. Always for the second time, super interesting to have you. And we'll have you back, and maybe we'll make it every 9 months or so. Seems to be a good pace for now. So we'll look to do that again down the road. So again, really appreciate your time. Couple comments that have come in. Hockey Guy says, be sure to like the video and subscribe. Be sure to follow Paul on Twitter too. So I'm going to throw that up right now for everybody there. Again, it's been up, but if you haven't seen it, at Paul_Lesko, that is where Paul really does most of his social media. So check him out on Twitter. If you are not yet following myself on Instagram, Twitter, if you haven't joined the Facebook group for Sports Cards Live, please go ahead and do so. Just put my name in as the reference. And if you are on Clubhouse, be sure to give me a follow, and I will likely follow you back at Sports Cards Live. That's a fun new social media platform that is really starting to take off, and it is by invitation only right now as they ramp up and scale their app. So be cognizant of that, and it's only available on iPhone at this time. No, not available on Android yet. What do you use, Paul? Do you use iPhone or Android?
I use iPhone, and I was invited to Clubhouse. So I have not really checked it out or learned too much about it, but I am on there. But Twitter, that's where I live right now.
That's really it. Paul Cashman, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Great to have you. Big Unit says, thank you, Jeremy and Paul. Great show. Thank you, Big Unit, for joining us. And guys, I guess that's going to be about it. I'm kind of hesitant. There is no after hours tonight, guys. This is it for this Saturday. So Rock Latex says any after hours coming up. So just to be honest with everybody, I didn't book a guest for after hours. I just kind of, the week went by really quick. I was super busy at work this week and it just kind of escaped me. So there is no guest lined up. So I'm just going to say, no, we won't do an after hours this week, but we will definitely do one. We have after hours guests lined up for the next 2 Saturdays. So be sure to check those out. And again, I'm going to throw up right now the upcoming episodes. So next Saturday, Tyler Nethercott from Market Movers, followed by Billy Celio from Upper Deck, followed by Tim Getch from ComC, followed by Ken Golden from Golden Auctions. So a great lineup coming up. All right, Paul, thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me on.
Well, final comments rolling in. Lee Haskins, thank you so much. Bob Lewis, great to have you. Thank you. Mike Zier, okay, music cards next week then. Oh, I did mention maybe I've got my music cards in. Okay, I'll tell you what, guys. I'll tell you what. We will end this show and I will start up another broadcast on the channel. It'll just be me unless somebody out there wants to join. I'm going to put it, okay, totally changing the plan here. Paul, thanks for bearing with me. Totally changing the plan, guys. We will run an after hours. I will start a new broadcast. Give me 10 minutes or so, not even. Give me 5 minutes to just fill up my water, take a bio break, and we'll come back. We'll come back. If there's enough viewers, we'll stick it out. If not, we'll just go to bed, I guess. But yeah, calling an audible. I appreciate it. Thank you, Latrell Sprewell, for joining us. Big Unit says instead of after hours, just do a review of Coming to America. I did watch that. Watched that with my wife. Yep. Bobby Baseball, thank you so much. AZ Brothers, thank you. Have a good night to you too. And okay, that's it. I'll be back in about 5 minutes, guys. Paul, thanks again, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed this.
Okay, hang tight one sec. Everybody else, good night. If not, we'll see you in a few minutes. And if not, we'll see you next week. Have a great week ahead if you don't join us on After Hours.